Welcome to the rebirth of the African Civilization Show, the home of the Narmer Squad. What's good? What's happening? A well-organized lie. Defeat the disorganized truth every time. Woo-wee. Gonna have one of them powerful shows tonight. We're gonna continue our Narmer Squad teaching show. Last week we had Brother Ish. You know what I'm saying? We featured Brother Ish breaking down the moral science, killing them with the Nas. This week we're going to have Brother Jonathan come on in. He's going to give us a treat. He's going to translate the Narmer's palette for us. In truth, he's going to give us a glimpse into African history that I know y'all haven't heard before. Far too long, we've been depending on the Europeans to give us our story. Far too long, we've been trusting their translations. Far too long, we've been viewing our history through the eyes of the oppressor. And it's very, 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 very interesting to me. If you're a Christian, Muslim, or Hebrew, you have a certain standpoint of view, meaning where you stand and how you view the world. If you're a Christian, Muslim, or Hebrew, you have an idea and a concept based around monotheism, the one God. And so when you view other literature dealing with quote-unquote God, you can only see it through the eyes that you have been taught. You've been taught that God is outside of yourself and God is up there somewhere. You've been taught that God is going to save you. You've been misinformed. You've been taught that God has a geographical area. And from that geographical area is where your particular God reigns. To this we say bullshit. This is the idea and the concept, and I'm going to speak for myself on this, the Brother cannot accept. And I put on my real black atheist hat for that. Because if we're talking about Jesus Christ, then we're talking about Palestine and Judea. If we're talking about Allah, no matter what they say, we're talking about Saudi Arabia. If we're talking about Yahweh, once again, we're back in the Middle East. So what I'm saying is, the gods that we have been taught about are connected to land and geography and to people. So to try to run over in those areas and blackenize the key characters in their religion is foolishness. It absolutely makes no sense to me. It's so hard to be a Christian and try to mix and match and make it fit an African paradigm. It's so hard to be a Muslim and mix and match and make Muhammad this color, that color, and bring it into an African paradigm. It's so hard to be a Hebrew and mix and match and make everybody black and this and that and put them on a slave ship and put them here and there, and you got to put all the characters back in West Africa, and the question remains, well, why in the hell did you leave where you was at? It's hard. It's so easy to be an African because all you got to do is look in the mirror and just be yourself and recognize that we was kidnapped from the motherland. We make no excuses for this. We just accept who we are. We accept that in our lands we had different deities. And we also accept the fact that we're not going to look at it from a European standpoint of view. We're not going to look at it from a Christian standpoint of view, Muslim standpoint of view, or Hebrew standpoint of view. We want to see the world through the eyes of our ancestors. And we're not talking about the ancestors that got conquered by religion. We're going to talk about those, we want to deal with those who resisted the religion. About time we step up and talk about those who resisted. I love the Masi, Central Africa, the Congo. They resisted the religion of the oppressors. I love Queen Nzinga of the Congo. She resisted their religion. She held strong to our African customs and traditions. The Masi held strong to the African customs and traditions. Kemet held strong to African customs and tradition. Kush, Nubia, held strong to African customs and traditions. And so we represent the scholarship of those who held strong to African customs and traditions. And don't have a problem with being African, because being African is spiritual within itself. Everything you see is spiritual. Everything is energy. From an African standpoint of view, God would be existence. Do you not exist? That's why we say we God. Because to the African, God and nature is one and the same. There is no separation. If your spirituality does not clothe you and feed you and protect you, you do not have spirituality. You have racism, white supremacy. I'm going to say it again for those amongst us that are retarded. If your spirituality does not clothe you, feed you, shelter you, and protect you, you do not have spirituality. You have racism, white supremacy. You've been downloaded the virus of religion. And religion teaches you that there's something up there somewhere. You can't see it, you can't touch it, and you sure as hell can't smell it, but it's going to come and save you. It's going to change your conditions. I find that to be very ridiculous. Although I accept my brothers and sisters that have accepted these foreign religions, but I do not accept the foreign religions that my brothers have accepted. So this is why Brother Unc bangs so hard. I've been banging on religion from day one. That's my job. I've been sent to earth, bang on that religion. My ancestors blow hard through my voice. Never be conquered by religion. And you say, why do I fight so hard? Because religion is a governing mechanism. It governs your mind and shows you how to think. Religion is politics. We say politics. Religion is your culture. Your culture forms your religion, and your religion tells you how and what to place your politics on. The politics shows you where and how to spend your money. Shows the people what they are supposed to do. Religion puts you in control of trade routes. It allows you to apply your deity on certain situations, and it shows you how to govern yourself. It shows you how to think. And so if you're thinking like a foreigner, you're going to act like a foreigner, and you will take the value off of yourself, because religion does what? It shows you what and what not to value. It places importance on things that are cultural to a people. So if you're following a foreign religion, then you might not be important. So now we understand why the brothers and sisters in other religions don't respect Africa. They say, well, God is in every religion. Brother Unc, every language has a word for God, Brother Unc, and there is only one God. And I say, oh, really? And I asked him, I say, okay, since God is in every religion, and you do agree to this, and you say there's only one God, I say, well, voodoo is the God of the bounding universe. Can you say that to me, Mr. Christian, Mr. Muslim, Mr. Hebrew Jew? Can you say that voodoo is the God of the universe? You know what I hear? I hear crickets, crickets, crickets. Crickets, crickets, crickets. I hear the Jackson 5 song, dancing, 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 watch them get down. They will not say this. So now you understand that Brother Unc is saying that the African gods is just as important as other people's gods. And if you're going to believe in one God, then you need to believe in all the gods. From an African perspective, you cannot pray to God. From an African perspective, God does not work in the lives of men and women. From an African perspective, God is a mystery. Well, we got that serious show. That was something that was in my mind. Just wanted to kind of like, just kick that a little bit. Let me go right to the lines real fast. Ngozi, Black African Power.
Peace. Sub-Saharan Blue Black African Power. I'm a Ross Squad Up. What's good?
Sub-Saharan Blue Black African Power. I'm a Ross Squad Up. What's good, bro?
We got to be able to describe. We got to distinguish what from what. It's a lot of people, anybody, can, that term. So I like to say that Sub-Saharan, below the Sahara, Blue Black, Southwest Sub-Saharan African Black Power, that tells directly who we are. That's what we were taken from those coastlines. The name is Gessi Ngozi, wonderful blessing. Ngozi means blessing in Ibu. Gessi, which sounds out as Jesse, but Gessi means wonderful. So we should, them drawing off that Southwest demonstration. You know what I'm saying? As the Europe would say, Odabo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what it is, man.
Man,
I know what it is, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said, I really appreciate you breaking down the understanding of the absolute. The Africans never knew God in the sense of the upper force. He had no contact with human affairs and nothing to do with human affairs. He had agents, which is the natural forces around us that we deal with every day, that we depend on. But the absolute itself, whether it's the Ludamadi, Gainayama, Nebeche, Kulu Kulu, as they say in South Africa, Voodoo, as you just said, different names, or as they say, Akah, in certain parts of the continent, they don't know the absolute. They just know the expressions of it that's expressing itself at a lower rate in this finite reality that we experience. Even in science, they can't explain what causes quarks. There's certain things that's a mystery. Same thing with dark matter and dark energy. They bear witness to activity, but it's invisible activity because it's a lack of light. So since it's a lack of light that they can't see or comprehend, it's activity. They bear witness to particles, but they don't understand what is it and what type of elementary particles is doing this thing at its work. Same thing with dark energy. There's some things about reality that we just don't understand, and that in itself is the question mark. And that's why the Cometians or the people in Kemet called it Amen Renef. His name is unknown, or he who real essence is unknown. It's the question mark to reality. They don't know what causes quarks. They know about the God particle, the Higgs boson, which is responsible for forming matter as a thread. It's through the boson field, which is acceleration or accumulation of boson particles. But that's responsible for matter. But some things they just don't know. It does not end because we have to get past the elementary particles because it has a cause. That in itself is an effect. That's the building blocks to the physical reality that we experience. One dimension makes way for two dimensions. Two dimension makes way for three dimensions. The fourth dimension is a straight line, which is based off time. This is why we have to understand geometry and measurements, length, width, and depth. All that shit is important to the African. Physics itself, which is measuring the distance, range, and speed of things as accelerating. All that shit is important. All of it.
Everything. Everything is everything.
Everything is everything.
Yeah. All right. Brother Ish, your line is open. Black African Power.
Blacker boy, African power. Peace, peace. I'm around squad up, family.
Man, I'm
brother. I'm around squad up, man.
Yeah, peace, family. Peace,
bro.
big God.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you already know what it is. That ish. You know what it is.
No doubt, no doubt. On standby. You know what I'm saying?
I know how you do it. Brother Jonathan, Black African Power. What's good? What's happening, bro? I'm around squad up.
Peace, Black African Power. What's going on, everybody?
Peace, Rap God.
All right,
peace, brother.
What it is. Yeah, I'm just chilling, kicking back. We had some pretty good weather out this way, so took a little bike ride with my daughters. Got to sit in the park and think for a minute. Back at the house, ready to build.
I shake.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I say that is perfect. Peace.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a nice day. All right, hold on before you get started. I know you're gonna have we had a very, very good conversation, detailed conversation there, man. And I wish sometimes that people could hear our conversations. You know what I'm saying? I have conversations with you, conversations with Brother Ish, conversations with Brother Ngozi, Brother Chris. You know what I'm saying? Sister Jacqueline. You know what I mean? But like, we can have some powerful conversations, man. And so I guess this class you're going to be teaching today is going to be based off of conversation and based off of the information that you put in the Raw Squad group. I find it to be very, very interesting, your take on this, man. You was looking at some things that was real powerful. Let me open up this last line, and we're going to get right into it. Hold on. That brother from New York. Hey, Larry, what's up with you, man?
Peace. Black African Power.
Ooh, boy.
Hey, Gozy, what's up, bro?
Peace, what's good with you, Larry? How you doing, man?
All well, man. You wild down on Levi, man.
Man, that motherfucker crazy, man. That brother wild.
I told him to call,
Larry
right?
Jones.
No, listen. I told him to call, but he said it's like, he 40 years old, he a professor in the university. Is it worth it? I said, listen, we online and rumors, they spread easy, right? So he said, well, this is kind of, I said, listen, brother, look, I gave you advice. I gave you the phone number. I'm done with it. You understand? You say you ain't white. Your voices tell us who you are. No, I mean.
You talking about the guy? Oh, you talking about that guy?
Yeah, you can pretend. You can pretend, but when you come on this phone, right? we won't hear. We won't hear if your ass is from the hood or if your ass is Wanabi.
But what's questionable about him is that he talks about people being Eurocentric in certain areas, and I don't even like to bring up trolls on Facebook because there's a bunch of trolls on there, yo. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he is. But what I'm saying is that he talks about people being Eurocentric, but everything that, like, it was a post up there about Egyptians being black. He shot it down, said that they were more closer genetically to their affinities with Eurasians than Africans. That's an insult. That was bogus. That's the one strike. Second strike, he said. He said Haplogroup E started in the Near East. Haplogroup E started in the Near East? Like, are you serious? It was a post somebody put up there about Ramesses III with haplogroup E1B1A. We've been talking about that, but one of the people that listen to the show, they just getting up on it. And I think they need to hear that because it tells who we are. You know what I'm saying? They need to know about it. This dude shoot it down and say haplogroup E doesn't start in Africa. It started in the Middle East. That's another insult. That's the second strike. The third strike today. The dark-skinned people in Asia. Okay, he liked it and shit, but then he turned around and said, well, what about the mainland Chinese and China? I say they have some of their skin their skin is close to white or something like white, but they are not Caucasian. They're Mongoloid. They're neo-Mongoloid. He had a problem with that, tried to do some reverse psychology shit. And then, I could have hit him with all Caucasians are not pale skin. You have Caucasians that's brown and olive.
Yeah.
But I didn't even, I'm like, this shit is like, so I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? 1 minute you straight, everything is not African, and the next minute he's put up another fourth. This is the fourth strike. 1 minute he said the Egyptians was more closer to Eurasians. The fourth strike, and then he turned around and brought up a philosopher and said that somebody said the Egyptians was from northern Egypt. Now, and that proves the case that they was in Africa. Dude, who the fuck are you? So I'm like, yo, it didn't make sense. So that's why I'm kind of like, yo, there's something wrong with this dude.
Well, all I know is there's a place called Blocked Outlets. There's a lot of floating Hebrews in that list.
I mean, the rest of the Hebrews too, like the rest of it, like you know what? The rest of the Hebrews, they cool. I mean, I have nothing against the Hebrews. I'm like, we need to unify with our people. But then when you start trying to insult the Egyptians and say they wasn't African, I'm talking about Black Sub-Saharan African. You getting kind of fishy. Something fishy about you. It's not right. Then haplogroup E didn't start in Africa. It started in the Near East. You're a nutcase. And I know where he got that from. I know why he got that. I know where he got that from, but that shit is outdated. The reason why he said that is because of the gap marker through Euro-Asian atom that split out of East Africa, the yes associate protein through haplogroup CT that left out of Africa and gave rise to the other people. But what he failed to realize is that all haplogroup CT descendants did not leave Africa. It went through that DE marker and then became a single haplogroup E in East Africa towards the Horn. So I get why he's trying to say that. But he just bring out some shit that was already outdated since 2005. They don't use that no more. You ain't gonna catch Mr. Wells or Michael Hammer using that no more. Michael Hammer had to go back on that shit and retract it and say, oh no, it didn't start in Asia. It originated in Africa. Because some of your Asian atom ancestors never left. And that's why the Africans, the people with haplogroup E, has a connection with the Asians with haplogroup D and haplogroup CF and CF and single F because of the YAP mark. It's called a yes associate protein. That's why we have the marker, because of your Asian atom that split.
Wow. All right.
Or the CM130 or the CM130 in Australia with the Black Aborigine people. We're connected with them through that first dude that left out. You get what I'm saying? It was a few migrations. We know there was a second migration around 75,000 years ago. Those are the people that survived. But you also had another migration over 190,000 years ago. That's why you find those tools in Yemen, the Sudanese tools in Yemen. Evidently, these motherfuckers, they didn't survive. Then you found those fossils in Jerusalem. They lived 80,000 years ago, and they said the environment was too harsh for them to survive. If you study geology during that time. So the people that survived was the ones that left out 75,000 to 65,000 years ago, because the phylogenetic tree showed that through the genome. So, I mean, we need to follow what the hell going on, yo.
It's a good breakdown. That's true.
Well, let me say hi to the sister real quick. Then, Brother Johnson, you can go ahead and start the class. What's up, Sister Jack? The Black African Power.
Black African Power. You got Michael Jackson in my mind now. You know, I'm a bit. What'd you say, dancing machine?
Dancing machine. I'm gonna get that on the switchboard. I swear, yo.
Heck, I need to play that. I need to play my Michael Jackson dance tomorrow. Get my dance on. Like a maniac on that dance floor, working out with it. Heck. Oh yeah. Yeah.
No. That shit funny, yo. Watch him get down. It started there, yo. Watch him get down.
Watch him get down. He said, watch him get down. Watch him get down.
Get down. Blame it on the boogie.
Hello, everybody on the phone. Hello, everybody on the phone.
People love it.
All right, okay. Where you at, Brother Johnson?
I'm right here, man. What's going on?
Go ahead, man. Kick this off, man. I got some links.
Oh, well, I'm going to need some participation. I'm going to need participation from the whole squad. I don't want to look at it like a class. It's more like a workshop when we on the cutting edge, you know what I'm saying, the scholarship. We need participation of everybody to kick in on what they think we see. Right now, I'm going to place one of the best copies of the Narmer palette that I have found in the chat room. Okay. And I use this one specifically because let me see. Hold on. Because if you click on it and you actually double click or what have you, you can see a really detailed copy of the palette. And you should see both sides. We also see both sides of the Narmer palette. And I don't know, let's start breaking it down. Well, traditionally in academia, you won't really be able to find what they call a translation
of the Narmer palette, really because of the time period of what we're looking at. We know that this is pre or proto-dynastic Kemet, you know what I'm saying, and the grammar, the grammar that everybody studies, or which we have a plethora of, information on, is Middle Egyptian grammar, but this wouldn't really particularly apply to Middle Egyptian grammar, as this is even predates Old Kingdom grammar. This would be proto-dynastic, and I am one who will simply call it grammar because as I look into the palette and scrutinize each glyph individually as we place them together, even following some of the rules of Middle Egyptian grammar, we start to see a structure or syntax or grammatical formations of sentences actually saying the exact same thing that the art says. And so if we look to the right of the photo of the palette, or what we would call the recto side, but really it's on the right side of the photograph we're looking at, is considered the front of the palette. And on the top register or row, if everyone could take a look, the first thing we will notice is what's commonly, it's not really a debate, it's commonly seen as Hathor, but, if we look into it, that might not be Hathor, it might be a pre-dynastic goddess named Bak. Okay, and one thing that we know is when we look at a lot of archaeology from proto-dynastic Kemet, we'll see Bak being venerated. One way we can tell the difference between her and Hathor is the way that her horns are turned. Hathor, if you think about Hathor's headdress, or the headdress that is worn and represents Hathor, or any depiction of Hathor, you'll see her horns turn outward, and they definitely do not circle inward. As we see the goddess Bat here was venerated in pre-dynastic times, and also there was a gnome right adjacent, like a sister gnome to Hathor, before Hathor was amalgamated with Bat and took over all of her duties and roles. Everybody can look into that. In the center between the icons of the goddesses, we see a charrette, or a proto-dynastic version of a charrette. It's not really the actual charrette. If you look up a charrette, what a charrette is basically an indication of royalty, I would say, or a way to encapsulate a name to a pre-dynastic, or a way to encapsulate a name to show that that's what the leader or the king or what have you. And what we see that as indicated by the square box that kind of looks sort of like, I don't know, whatever, it's a charrette. But inside of the charrette, you see a catfish on top, which is generally transliterated Nar, N-A-R. So that's where we get the Nar from Narmer palette. Right up under that, we see a chisel, which is transliterated Mer, M-R. So Narmer is how we get this name, Narmer, and that's on the top register. Let's go down to a more telling, depiction on the second register. If everybody could scroll down a little bit, and we can look at this. First, let's look at it artistically, and I want people to notice a few things, because when we learn how to read Middle Egyptian, we learn that we can follow the direction that all of the glyphs are, specifically the animals and the humans in the inscription, are facing. So as soon as I say that, I know if we are looking at it, everyone can see that all the animals on the second register, notice it, the majority of the animals on the second register are facing one direction, as well as the majority of the people in Narmer's procession, they're facing to the right. This would tell us to begin reading this inscription from the right, because the animals or the people always face the beginning of the inscription. So that's an indication right there. But Val, you also see, well, I draw a divide on this second register between these 10 dead people we seeing on the right side. I hope everybody's following me. If you also, if not, then you can slow me down. Yeah. We also, what we'll notice is we see two birds and a boat, and what some scholars call a door, but I might disagree there. We'll notice that those two birds are facing to the left or they're facing the opposite direction of the animals in Narmer's procession. This would tell us, if we were following the rules of Middle Egyptian grammar, that that's another statement completely. And it also makes sense here once we start to look into it. And now,
hold on, John. Hold on real quick. Hold on, whoa. You talking about, okay. Hold on now. You talking about where their head's chopped off, right? You talking about up top where the bird is facing?
Yes, right above the top dude with his head chopped off. You'll see.
I see that. Okay, I got you.
We'll see an ideogram, and then you see a bird, and then you see a solar bark or a boat, and then above that is Heru standing on a particular ideogram or a glyph or phonogram. We haven't decided that yet, but. What I was pointing out is the direction, simply the direction the animals are facing. They're facing to the left, in contrary to the ones. Yeah. So let's deal with Narmer's procession.
Hold on,
okay, cool.
I put another thing in the chat room for y'all. It kind of is a real detail of it. Y'all can really look at it. All right, really see that. Cool. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Also on that photo, on the photo that I placed in there, if you double click on it, it gets real big. But anyway. Let's start looking at it artistically. Let's identify the animals, because we know the things that are represented zoomorphically or what have you. So let's look at these birds in Narmer's procession on top of what I think I've identified as totem poles. And the glyph would be R12. Actually, I need to place in the chat room so some people can verify this. Or you can just Google Gardner sign list. Here we go. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yeah,
take your time.
Here we go. All right, now, basically, when we're talking about these hieroglyphs, there's basically a code, and these glyphs are coded. And if you hear like R12, which is the one I'm talking about now, you can simply look at the sign list I put in the chat, and if you don't have access to the chat, you just Google Gardner sign list and look up the signs we're talking about to verify the information we're going through. Now, basically, we're starting in Narmer's procession. We're starting with the first totem on top. We see a hawk, what looks like a hawk. The way that I will know that it's a hawk, just from my understanding, is that the beak is turned down. I'm sorry, did I say a hawk? I meant to say a falcon. Apologize. It's because the beak is turned. I apologize. It's because the beak is turned down on the falcon, and it's always depicted this way on top of that first totem. And the totem, if we look in Gardner's sign list, will be R12. If we look deep into R12, if we go, we'll find out that it's used for holding up what they call religious symbols. Okay. If we look at this from an African perspective, we would know this as a totem, or it might be simply a zoomorphic representation of a tribe or a people. So on this first totem, we see the falcon or Heru, all right, which is the falcon, and we know this by the turned down beak. We can all verify that. Right behind that person carrying the first totem, we see this again, which looks like a repeat of the same bird, Heru. Correct me if I'm wrong. Another thing I want you to notice is the height of the men holding the totems. They're identical in height, these two men holding the Heru totems, which to me indicates two separate tribes of Heru. But let's go behind them to the third totem and the next two characters who are also identical in height, but they're holding two separate totems. Now, from such a small depiction, what it looks like on the third character's totem, at the top we see some type of a dog-shaped character. Now, we got options for that, but we also got to look at the way the dog is depicted. It's not a recumbent dog. It's not seated with its first two paws up. And it's like standing in a perch. And this would, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's Wep Wawet, who was the opener of the way, or basically a deity seen as, just like I said, the opener of the way, used in certain type of rituals for cleaning out sacred spaces or what have you. But now, to go to the fourth totem, and also notice, like I pointed out before, the man carrying this totem is equal in height to the man carrying the Wep Wawet totem. We see what is an undetermined glyph, but some scholars call it a placenta with a hanging umbilical cord. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't want to choose on that specifically. And if we're following the theme that these are totems, this would have to be some type of veneration towards some type of, feminine attribute or, fertility attribute, we would say. Anyway, let's look at the person following ahead of Narmer, and if we notice, he has two glyphs in front of his face. Bent cord and a half a loaf of bread, or a bent rope and a half a loaf of bread. The bent rope, I don't know the Gardner sign for it, but it represents the TCH sound. And the loaf of bread was, what you see, a half a loaf of bread, that's what they call that semicircle we see in front of his face, is a T. So we got TCHT, we got Tchet. Now, if you go, I want to, if we ever looking at glyphs like this, is a very useful tool. Is Mark Vigas's online dictionary. It's MarkVygus, and it's a PDF, so it's a tool you might have to download. And one reason why it's good is because you can use transliteration. That means if I say it's TT, you can put the capital T. If I say it's TCHT, you can put the capital T and a lowercase t, and it'll take you to a list of glyphs that are listed under that transliteration. Now,
hold on for a minute. Hold on 1 second. What's the name of the dictionary again, yo?
I'm walking around my garage. I would have posted it. My bad. It's Mark Vigus, Vygus. Mark Vigus' online dictionary, Egyptology, or Egyptian grammar. Excuse me. But anyway, while you post that, Mark, Mark.
Vigus. Spell it again.
Vygus.
All right. I got you. Mark Vigus dictionary.
Post that in there for everybody, and that's a real good research. One thing about reading the glyphs, it don't matter what denomination you under, but it's when you start reading that truth, it really ain't too much lying to put on that. So I welcome everybody to our tools and resources that help us get at least as far as we've gotten so far. Let's go in on this term. Let's go in on this term right here that's above the companion to the king is what they call this term. But it has to be looked at. We got to look at this term, this Tchet, T-C-H-E-T, Tchet. Now, some scholars say this is the name of the person we're looking at who is the fifth man in the procession, in Narmer's procession. And we can look at this various ways because there are also different definitions of Tchet, which is not just the companion of the king, but it would include all of these individuals holding these totems, which would say the companions of the king, or we find defined in that same dictionary that I just pointed out as gangs or partisans or what have you. But I don't think those are adequate definitions to say this is Narmer's gang or these are his partisans. To look at it from our perspective, these is tribes that roll with Narmer or companions of the king. Now let's go to Narmer, and then we're going to put all these glyphs together and watch it say a sentence. Because right behind the individual who has the glyph Tchet above his head, we see Narmer's name repeat. We see the catfish and the mer chisel. And then we look at Narmer. But we should also look at, we're looking at it artistically right now, so we have to look at the crown he has on. He has on this is the Jezeret, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, exactly. This is the red crown. Okay, this is the red crown of Lower Egypt, Jezeret. And also he has a hedge in his hand and he has a flail in his hand. The hedge would be the mace, and the flail, I forgot the Kemetic name for that, excuse me. But as we see, this scene is indication of what he did in Lower Egypt because of the crown he has on right now. So that's telling us that. We go behind him, and there's you see this flower or a rosette. And I want us to notice this rosette because as we look through all of these stellars, we're going to see this again, and it's going to come in quick. But I think it's a determinative with no phonetic quality, or the phonetic quality is unknown. If you're looking at a really good copy of the stela, right up under that rosette, you see a little small face. I'm talking about, that's the sandal bearer. The individual who this rosette is above. If you look at his hand, you can clearly see he's holding Narmer sandals. And so it's been said by scholars that this rosette and this small face indicates the sandal bearer. But we don't know if that's true. Now, another...
Hold on 1 second, John. Hold on 1 second. Let me get... There was a couple questions in here real quick. The first question was, it says, what's the difference if it's a falcon, a hawk, or a vulture? Those
are all different. First of all, if it's a falcon, a hawk, or a vulture, they all got different... they all have different zoomorphic attributes, and they also all have different phonetic qualities. Meaning the hawk, let's go back to the one who we started. The falcon is an indication of Heru, and we don't. Basically, if you see the hawk, it'll be a biliteral in grammar, meaning that it has two consonant sounds, and that sound would be HR. So we get Heru from that, or some say whore. Now, if we see a hawk, then it's going to typically be the A sound. The A sound. Yeah, exactly right. It's going to typically be the A sound. It's not like they're going to be spread wings, and a lot of the times in these old depictions, it's hard to even tell the difference between what it is. Now, on this question, that'll be the A sound, like I said, the hawk. But let me point out something we can all look at. When I told you about the beak of the falcon, now look at on the same register that we were just reading, scroll over to the right to that sparrow. How do I know that's a sparrow and not the same hawk? Because look at his beak. If you look at the beak is pointed forward. I'm saying, why do I believe this is a sparrow? Because the beak isn't curved as it is with the falcon, as well as the way that the eye is depicted. And we also know that the sparrow is an indication of malevolent or bad things. It can be used to say great, but as we see here, we see these decapitated men, and we see the sparrow, and then we can say it's kind of like an indication of something bad. Basically, that's what the sparrow indicates whenever you see it. So they have different meanings as well as different phonetic qualities. That sparrow would be You say for the sparrow, whore for the falcon, for the hawk it'll be an A sound, and the moot is the vulture and what have you. But
the owl, you also have the owl also, right?
And the owl, exactly. That would be the M sound. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot, and there are more birds that we also find. Some used as determinatives, even in the name for Jehudi, the first three consonants, or maybe it's a bilateral, the first two consonants are represented by the abyss bird. And so, you know what I'm saying, there's different ways, and we got to really know which ones we're looking at to even know what they're trying to indicate. But to keep it, was there another question?
I had a question, Brother Jonathan.
What's up with it, bro?
Do you know if there are any differences when you see, we'll say, the Twa, which are holding up the totems, as you describe them? Do you see the differences between the things like the sashes or the dress of each one? Do you see that would be any difference of why they're that way, as well as indications of facial hair? Some have facial hair, some do not, as far as the beards and the grooming of them. Do you see any differences in either the dress or in the facial hair on those?
I definitely do, bro, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because as we look at this in two ways, grammatically and artistically, there are some artistic things that fall by the wayside that we definitely should address. Like, just because I don't know the names of the differences in their garb doesn't mean that we should not point out the fact that some of these guys are depicted wearing topless. Some might have, like we see them guy in front of Tachet
Right.
And excuse me, I think these glyphs, some say those are flowers that they're holding, but I'm not sure about that. I think that has something to do with being a scribe, but I don't want to go there. If we look at what looks like his torso area, it seems he's wearing a complete upper and lower garment. And so I'm glad you also pointed out that that could be the Twa, who are represented as the Shemsu Heru, or the followers of Heru, because all of this is relevant. But one thing we should notice, and not to go there, we can look at the difference in the actually the hair textures on this, because it's indicated. Let's go down to the next register. If the last thing we skipped, and then we're going to address what you're talking about now, is a box with an undetermined glyph above the sandal bearer, who also had undetermined phonetic qualities as far as I'm concerned. And my impression of this would be a term owl, or for come, because it started as being the glyph and developed into the Middle Kingdom glyph for 2 legs walking. But right here, I can't really say that's 2 legs walking, because it also is something in between the 2 legs. If we're all looking at the same box above the sandal bearer behind Narmer, it also looks like it's an A symbol. So something is binding these 2 legs, or whether that represents land, whatever, it's undetermined, but it had to be addressed before we proceeded.
Sure.
If we slide down to the next register, and we can get into what you were pointing out right here. Let's look at the depiction of these men. And like I said, this is a workshop, so I need to know what we see here. One thing I can point out is that unless we're looking at these ideograms as strictly determinatives, are meant for us to determine the meaning of the whole entire palette, there is no grammatical glyph or no phonogram in this register. What we see, I could, unless I knew the names for their I don't want to say their raps or whatever, you know what I'm saying, and the rope. But as we will see as we continue.
One quick question. On the level that's above, right? You have the 10 dead bodies.
Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't go over here. Let's go.
And then you have the arms and the body are definitely bound, distinctly wrapped and bound.
Mm-hmm.
I see some that are pigeon-toed and some which the legs go different. Well, actually, some go in different directions. It looks like some may be pointing straight, possibly on that bottom. But I was just wondering, has anybody ever really kind of noticed those details of how those legs are kind of going different directions? You know, the ones that are holding head.
I've been staring at this thing. I ain't even noticed that. That's a good one, dude. That's crazy. I wouldn't know what to say for that as far as the analysis we're giving, but that's definitely something to notice. And this is something else I want to pose out there. We see that boat on the pallet, and we consider it the solar bark of the pharaoh.
Right.
But it could be looked at as in another way. These could have been passengers on that boat. I don't want to give nothing, because as far as the scholarship with a translation on this palette, you won't get as far as we've gotten so far anyway. So we're in the area where we can just, you know what I'm saying? We can propose our theories without having somebody be, oh, hell no. But I'm just saying it could be looked at as the solar bark of Narmer, but we don't see it over there with Narmer. And I just thought to myself, could these have been like some people who traveled down now into the wrong area or what have you? But I don't want to, stay on my conjecture.
Well, you heard the Tune 100, right?
What's
Tune 100? Let me see. Tune 100. That's pre-dynastic time. You'll find you find actually like a naval battle on boats, and so it's not above thinking that these people came down on boats too.
Also, with this being you're right. Also, with this being a pre-dynastic or proto-dynastic palette, it would not have even been established yet that this was a solar bark at this time. They established that in Middle Egyptian Old Kingdom grammar, but at this time, who's to say whether that meant just a boat, a depet, what would be called a depet in Metal Netta, or a solar bark? You know, I mean, a solar bark, which would be a specific boat for the pharaoh. You know,
and I think that is important that you point that out, because on that same level, as you also accurately pointed out, we're dealing with the rule under the lower. You know, he's wearing the lower crown, so we're not even dealing with that part like you accurately pointed out. You know?
Exactly. He is. He's wearing the red crown, which will let us know he's talking about Lower Egypt, and we're talking about the marshlands, or the areas that some of the areas you would indeed need a boat to navigate. But that is we're in the realm of speculation, and somebody can come to a conclusion on that however we want. To proceed down to the next register where we were, this is some mythological creature that we find between pre-dynastic Kemet and Mesopotamia that scholars call Separad or something like that. Separad. Yeah, it's like a serpent and a leopard. It's like a serpent and a leopard. But looking at this artistic depiction, and I was going to say earlier, once we continue on through different palettes, we will see this circle. Whichever represents, to me it looks like, obviously it represents some type of eternal struggle. The reason why I say eternal is because we know this circle, as we'll see in a moment, developed into the Shenu, or the circle of eternity, represented on a lot of these pre-dynastic palettes right in the center of the palette. And we'll be able to...
Can I jump in there real fast?
Go ahead, I'm with you.
I'm jumping real quick. Hold on. I'm going to put this in here, right? This is the part I want to add. I'm going to put that in the chat room, right? That circle is really an indention, right? Because it's really a ceramic. I mean, they're dealing with like makeup. And so in this area is where they would crush the powder or whatever to actually use, the makeup. Because that's exactly, it's a palette used for a decoration and also used for, makeup. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Sometimes we
Ceremonies,
forget that. It's a cosmetic. Yeah. Cosmetic, certain palettes, like in voodoo ceremonies, you mix certain medicines together, but this palette would have been used for that. And they call it like the cosmetic palette. Just want to kind of throw it in there because that's important. And you'll find it on all these palettes, the Hunter's palette, Moore palette, all that, because that's what they're actually used for something. I'm saying we look at it as a historical document, which it could be used as, but if we look back on what the people during that time would have been using it for, right, it could have been in a private collection in someone's home, right? It could have been used amongst the priests, right? But that circle in that area is definitely for mixing something in that. I just want to kind of add that to that. All right.
Now, I know we're trying to scoot along, but I forgot to actually read that register. I just broke down what it is, but I want to show how we can read it. So let's go back up to that second register with Narmer on it, and let's start at the first Heru totem, and let's go through this individually and see if it says something. All right, now we got... Now, me and the way I'm reading this Old Kingdom grammar, I'm looking at the individuals or the men holding the totems as the determinative for what the totem actually says. So, for instance, we got the falcon at the front on his R12, which royal perch, which would be Hor. Now we got another falcon representing the tribe of Heru, which would be Hor. Then we got Wet Wawet, and then we got this undetermined glyph. Then we got Techet. Now, what does that say? Let's stop right there. It says Hor, Wet Wawet. We know those are three tribes. Here go the fourth one, undetermined. And then it says Techet, companions of the king. Okay, so that's established, right? Those are companions of the kings. These are who accompanied Narmer on his drive. Now, who was the king? Techet means companions of the king. Right behind that, you see Narmer's name, Techet Narmer. So now we got Hor, Wet Wawet, undetermined glyph, Techet, Narmer. So these are the companions of the king, Narmer. Now let's look at Narmer grammatically instead of artistically, since we know that the red crown is the Jezeret. We're going to say Nisut Jezeret, which would be the king of Lower Egypt, is what this is saying. And we can really read further and look at the hedge in his hand and the flail too, and tell him we would be able to say that he's on his way for some type of war or whatever, but I don't want to go into far. He's with his sandal bearer, who is determined by determinative with no phonetic quality. So basically right there it's saying Heru, 2 tribes of Heru, Wet-Wawe, and an undetermined tribe are the companions of the king Narmer of the king of Lower Egypt. You see what I'm saying? And that's what that register say as far as that inscription is. If you want to say what it says above those dead men, we'll have to work that out in another show because that's an ongoing study. I got to find what that glyph is before that sparrow. That's what I'm tripping on. So anyway, down to register 3, now we see 2 of men who I think you could say that represents Narmer men, or I could say that one of those men represents Narmer's people and the other one represents the people he's fighting against. I don't know. Anybody got anything for register 3 of the recto side?
Well, I can distinctly read it as a form of a duality. You know, I'm seeing a form of twins or a form of mirror images, either from the men or from the beast itself. You know, so I definitely see a distinct message of duality in that particular section.
Exactly, and symmetry and all of that indicated. Let's proceed. And really, the cold part about it is the way that scholars read these, they read it register by register, so they would be going front to back. But we reading it first register, second register, third register on the front and then on the back. But just to point that out, because as we go down to the bottom of the front side, what we'll see is a bull. And now this is something that we need to cite down. We can refer to Gardner sign list for this. Actually, you might have to refer to an extensive or a more exhaustive sign list to break down what we're about to go into, and this will take us into a few other palettes. We see the bull. We know if we study Kemet a little that the pharaoh is sometimes represented by a bull, okay, the bull or the mother or what have you. And we see right here this bull is in a forceful position. Now when we look at the glyphs, well we got to know that this is a hieroglyph here. This what looks like another semicircle, except it's turned sideways, and we also see what will be a pre-dynastic indication of some type of city center right in the center with the brunt of the king's or the bull's force headed towards that icon or that glyph. I don't want to say it's a city center because I'm speculating, but what I can tell you is that this outer glyph, which is the one of importance, represents a fortification or a town wall. This is Gardner it's O36B. Gardner O36B. The reason why it's B, you got to go to a more exhaustive sign list. But if you look it up in E.A. Wallace Budge, it'll be under 35, number 35 under buildings and temples or stuff like that. And Gardner's, like I said, is O36B. Now, what is really important about this, because this lets us know that this is a town or a settlement or an extraction that Narmer is moving on, okay? Whether, if we want to tie it up with the upper register, maybe it's a settlement of people who came by boat or what have you, but we know that this is a settlement. Now, this is a good time to go to the verso side or the back to flip it over. Just slide over to the other side and let's stay on the bottom register because I have to point something out, and this is going to be very key for us to follow. If we're looking at the bottom register, we also see 2 more men, just like we've seen the man obviously represented in some languish, dying or dead position. We see 2
being
more
crushed.
men.
He's like in
exactly
being crushed. Yeah,
exactly. Well, we see on the verso side, we also see 2 more men lying in a similar position with glyphs above them. Now, the glyph which corresponds to O36B that we just seen on the opposite side of the cellar is this square with what somewhat fortified walls that we see. That is a complete version of O36B, which is probably represented as O35 or O36, not O36B, just probably O36, but you can look them up in that sign list. And you'll see this is a fortification or a town, or it represents town walls. Back in the day, we know some people actually set up real town walls made out of sticks to keep animals out or what have you. And so this is this is what this is. Now, above the other man, scholars say, and I'm going to go with what they're saying, that this may be the name of these people who lived in this town. The glyph we're looking at is a debate over whether it's some type of a flower or whether it's something that developed later into a glyph for O, which would be like a wah sound, a UA sound. But that's for us to figure out. You know what I'm saying? That's the homework we got. Let's go up now that we're on this side of the Stella, and we can do the
I wanted to point something out also.
Go ahead.
As we were touching on earlier, the clothing of the people, the person that was being crushed was naked, and the two underneath are naked.
They are naked, and another thing, that's a good point, and another thing that I kind of shy away from pointing out, remember the other brothers had afros. These dudes clearly got straight hair on this register. But I don't like going there too much. But, I mean, if we're looking at a blown-up copy of it, we can see that the artist didn't depict it this way just for nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? But in opposition to that view, we can also say to Chet, the man standing in front of Chapet, or the companion of the king on the recto side, also has straight hair, while the guys in front of him has what looks like kinky hair.
That's
you
correct.
see what I mean?
Yes.
But we still should notice that since we're trying to be extremely detailed. Let's go up a bit to what's called the smiting scene.
Right.
And you know, we can read this. We could look at it artistically and grammatically. First things we notice is the sizes of certain things, and the size of this scene would indicate that it might be the most prominent. It got the biggest meaning, is the biggest one on the whole palette. But let's just look at the glyphs. We see whore again. We see whore on what now? A modified version of the Shah glyph. It's a glyph that represents the SH sound. We see, I don't even know, I don't want to say the wrong flower. I don't know what flower that is in particularly, but it's represented by the Shah glyph. We see like 6 flowers, and then we see, some call it the throwing stick. I don't know if that's the difference between a throwing stick or a tethered rope inside of the nose of the enemy, the undetermined enemy, being pulled up by Horus. If we had to read that glyph alone, and it would be hard to do so, it would be probably inadequate to try, but it says Horus Shah. You know what I'm saying? That's what it says, Horus Shah. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not about to lie to nobody. But we are going to do this homework. Check it out. The stance is the first thing I read when reading this side, because that stance actually is a determinative for smiting or repelling or repulsing or driving away. The stance itself has a name. It's called Sakir. Sakir, that is that stance he's in. Now we see him in a different crown, right? So we're going to read the art. The crown, this crown is the white crown of Upper Egypt, so this would be the hedge. I know this because the color white would be hedge as well, and so we can just remember that the white crown of Upper Egypt is the hedge crown. Now, this is similar. It's the hedjet. Let me say hedjet, because the mace that he's holding up in his hand is called the hedge. Okay, so we can clearly know that the hedjet is the white crown of Upper Egypt, and the mace in his hand, it has various different names, but it can also be called a hedge. This is the H capital D if you want to put it into Mark Vigas's dictionary. H capital D, and for the white crown of Egypt, you put H capital D T. Okay, now he's holding him in a secure stance, which is to repel this guy. He got his hand in the head, but look right behind the head of the enemy or the foe. We clearly see 2 glyphs.
Yeah.
Now this makes me mad because the scholarship provided on this is inadequate. They attribute this top glyph behind the head of the victim of the smiting to T14. And everyone can look and see, and you can clearly gonna say, oh, that ain't T14. If y'all can look through Gardner's sign list, go down to the T's and look at 14, and you'll see what they're calling a harpoon. But it's clearly a box with some type of top on it poking out of that harpoon that is not present on the Narmer palette. So I don't know where scholars get off on. I mean, they might have done some homework I'm not hip to that lets them know that this is that. Has anybody identified that T14?
T14,
no.
hold on. I'm trying to find wait.
Yeah, if you look through the sign list, on Gardeners, I put it in the chat room. All you got to do is click.
Foreign people, Nubians.
Click what? What I got to do to get to it real quick?
T21.
T21.
I'm going off the top of my head.
How do I
shouldn't be doing that.
How do I get to
it?
T21 is it says debt and log 1.
All right, let me see. I'm sorry. Let me look.
How y'all got to it.
Oh, well, I'm about to put the sign list back in the chat room again. For listeners who listen to it at a later date, simply Google Gardeners sign list. Here it is in the chat room again. See, sometimes, honestly, when it comes down to things that are not up for the debate, I really, for convenience, I would use Wikipedia. But I know how much communiversity scrutiny we get for doing like that. But now we're just making it complicated for ourselves because we could clearly just go to Wiki and get a better sign list. But I'm using this one. Why you ain't go to Wiki for that? No, this one works because this one works. And if we go and we look at the glyph I'm trying to show, it's T21.
Okay,
it's T21.
Let me get here.
You go to T and go to 21.
Okay. All right.
Now you see that glyph?
Yeah.
Now then, let's look back at the palette. You see how under whatever superimposed over T21, it does look like the same shape of an ideogram. But what we have to determine, what we know is it ain't the same glyph. So we can't really say that this is what they say it is. I also want to point out something on the palette. We got to go back to the opposite side because it's about to make some sense a little bit. Not some sense.
So hold on, Jonathan. Hold. T21, you saying that's not the same as this on here?
No, but that's what scholars offer for that glyph. That's what I'm saying. If you look on any site about the Narmer palette and you want to find the breakdown, they'll say that glyph is T21. But it's not T21.
You don't think that look like that though?
No.
Well, this is the deal. T21 has another glyph. I think that's an SA glyph superimposed over it, and it indicates the top of something. That you see, if you look at T21, that's two glyphs combined together. They're not telling us what the bottom glyph is. They have the glyph that we're scrutinizing with a box and a little line poking out the top of that box.
Right.
If you go find that glyph, I wish if everybody following me.
Go ahead.
They don't look anything alike to me. One looks like the one on Gardner's page looks like a needle of some, what I mean? Like
well,
in comparison
it's called
to
a harpoon. They call it a harpoon or something. Well, it could be, but let's look back at the palette. Go back over the boat on the recto side on the front. Go back over the boat and look at what Heru is standing on.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Standing on that. Okay.
He's standing on the same glyph.
He's standing on the same glyph, exactly.
This been confusing me because we see the glyph associated with the dead people over here, but Heru riding on it. So I ain't figured that out yet. But at the same time, let's go back over here and let's pick up from what we have figured out. The glyph up under that is another way you can say. We back to the smiting scene, and we're looking behind the head of the man about to be smitten or whatever, and with the undetermined glyph that we're scrutinizing, some scholars say it's another uwa sound, and then we have SH, because that pool or that rectangle shape, you see the lines in it, it sometimes represents a pool of water, and it's an SH sound itself, and then this will give us wash. It would give us wash for this person, but I'm not rolling with that. That ain't, I don't buy that. Until we find out what that top glyph is, we'll know who these people are who Ramses is smiting. As simple as that. As far as the other details in this register, we go back over to the sandal bearer, and we can clearly see the face under the rosette, which, I'll tell you now, that face turned that way, it could be Hor or it could be Tep. It could be Hor or it could be Tep. And that's both going to be dealing with being on something. Hor, in the sense of a face, would be being upon something, being on something, like on it, like, you know what I'm saying. And Tep would be like being at the beginning of it. And we know Zep Tepi, the first time, right? Zep Tepi was the first time. So the Tep and Zep Tepi basically would be indicated by a face under that rosette flower we see behind the sandal bearer. It's really, really small, but you can see it. But like I said,
what I also noticed that I'd never noticed before was that on Narmer's waist right there, I see 4 emblems of the Hathor or whatever. I see 4 distinct.
Oh yeah, that's Bot, and that's you broke that out. That's Bot. I love you for that. And here goes something else. Since we be talking about these forgeries and everything, I was tripping off this. Look at Ramses' chest. It looked like somebody was starting to draw. I mean, I don't know if it would be original or not, but this is what I know about inscriptions. This inscription, and this is where Nazi Yashavel messed up, because this is the opposite of a sunk relief. You see, this is it's a risen relief. You see what I'm saying? Where Narmer protrudes out. He's not sunk in the relief.
Right.
And so when the person started, now look at the necklace on the sandal bearer. The necklace on the sandal bearer is coming out. But when the person tried to attempt whatever forgery or whatever they tried to do on the chest of Narmer, they realized that they were incising into it. And they didn't even have the ability. I mean, this is just strictly conjecture and my theory, but we can see it with our own eyes. Who stopped drawing this garment or whatever they were about to draw on the Narmer palette? If it was the original artist, he probably would have been reprimanded and had to start over. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just looking at this like maybe that is evidence of a forgery from a later time or incomplete work or what have you, but it's definitely there. Someone was attempting to draw a garment over Ramses' torso. Oh, wait, I said Ramses. Excuse me, I'm just tripping. We talking about
So Brother Jonathan, by looking at this, can we clearly say that the figure that he's grabbing here, can we also say that that's a king? Because if you look at all the figures on here, he is definitely as large as Narmer is. So this would have to be a very important person by the size.
Well,
I'll stand this guy up. He's gonna be the he's the same size as Narmer. So I'm thinking that's the king.
That, I mean, like I said, we in the realm of some we on the cutting edge, and that's a good thing to point out that his height would rival Narmer's height had he have been on his feet. And but we also got to keep in mind that in each register, the art is compared to the art in that register. You know what I mean? Like, for instance,
but the rest of the figures aren't his size in that same register. Look at them.
You're correct. You are correct. But they would have to be equated to the register with the separod in there, and the figures aren't that big, but that would be the size of those. Then there you have it. Look at it, because they're going to battle with the separods or whatever. Separods, I hate that word. I wish I knew the better word for these mythological beasts. But now that we look at it the way that you're pointing it out, that could indeed be the king, because we see on this opposite side of the palette some type of eternal mythological battle between two great forces, I would say. I mean, that's all I could call it. But I don't like to stay so far in the realm of speculation, but sometimes we have to decide. So if we was to read the smiting scene, and I have to leave out the words or the terms or the art that is not facing the direction of Narmer. Remember that. So I'm going to leave out that horse shot and that wash on the smiting scene, and I'm going to just simply read what I see. First, starting by the biggest glyph, which would be the pharaoh himself. It's his determinative stance. It's seker, seker, that's that stance, is to repel or to repulse. So I would say seker. Then I would go to the next indicator on that art would be the hat he has on, or the crown he has on, which would be the headjet. You see what I'm saying? So now they're saying Nisut, the king. You know what I'm saying? They're saying Nisut Secure or Sakar. Excuse my pronunciation. This is only for educational purposes. Nisut Secure. You see what I'm saying? That's saying the king. Actually, Nisut Hejet Secure, the king of Upper Egypt. You know what I'm saying? We're pulling away, and now we don't know the name of this enemy, but with the hedge. The hedge is the mace. That is clearly a statement right there. And if any of my brothers who study Middle Egyptian grammar are willing to look at this artistically and as a grammatical syntax, you might let me know what you think. It's saying what it's doing. It's saying the king of Upper Egypt, the Nisut of Upper Egypt, is smiting, I'm going to say, the wasp, you know what I'm saying, with the hedge. But now I want to make a transition. Anybody, what y'all feel about that?
I know that, like, in the early days, looking at it through infant's eyes, it used to get broken down in the early Nation of Islam days as, the Africans when they would smite the white man. And that's how we used to break that down in the nation. This was the Africans smiting the white man, and then the 6 flowers stood for the 6,000 years of the white man's rule, and the falcon above was called Shabazz, because Shabazz stands for Royal Falcon or Supreme Falcon. So that tribe of Shabazz was ruling the white, man after the 6,000-year rule, and the black man was smiting him and destroying him. That's how we used to break it down.
But you know what you're saying. I mean, what you're saying is it's close though, because those people that they were fighting were clearly from the Levant. They were Eurasian, and they came in on bull crap.
And they were there in the upper region, the upper Egypt.
Yes, they were. They were doing trade, and they tried to take over the government. Like when you look at the Jasper cylinder, the dude with the 2 long necks. I keep bringing it up.
And Gozy, go back to that symbol again. That sign with those 2 necks. Those symbols. You got the rope.
That's the Jasper cylinder. You can find that shit in Iraq, and you can find it in the Levant. You find it.
No, he's talking about.
No, I'm talking about the Narmer palette.
He's talking about the Narmer palette with the mythological creatures we was talking about the other day.
That's called a Jasper cylinder. You see it in the West Asia before that.
Correct. And it's also important to understand that those 2 mythical beasts are being controlled with that rope.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, hold on. Ish, I don't know what Ish saying before you go in, Ish. You can see the 2 brothers with the rope around his neck, as if they're insulting those people. Like it means conquering a nation or conquering a beast. They're taming it.
Exactly. Taming it, controlling it. Exactly.
So you think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you a question. So you think the people, the enemy people, are represented by the Separads or whatever, and the human individuals on this register represents Narmer's people?
Correct. Yeah, that's the way that we used to have it. That's the way we used to break it down. Exactly.
I wouldn't disagree. I just want to point out the clear symmetry on this. Like it's identical on left and right side, and
correct.
That might have some type of implications too, whether those people were Narmers or not, or whether the artistic goal of making it be symmetrical superseded showing these individuals as with different phenotypes or what have you. But I can look at it as, like he said, as the people restraining another culture, or we can look at it as 2 people both restraining the mites of 2 cultures, 2 opposing cultures.
Absolutely.
But anybody
might be
simple.
It might just be simple. It might just be real simple. That's the area they need to put the powder in.
you know what I'm saying? I just think the overall beauty of all what I see, constantly on this whole palette is just the duality of things. Whether I'm looking at the side that we're analyzing right now, from the top we have the two twin images, and on the bottom we have two twins. There's just a constant message of a duality, which cannot be ignored or cannot be. You know what I mean? We look at life not through duality lenses, but it's definitely a distinct message of something that's trying to be told. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and this is time to get deep. We got like 30 more live minutes, so let's take this moment to segue into a few other palettes. And because the top register of the verso side is the exact identical as the other register, so we kind of covered this until we picked up on our undetermined glyphs. But let's go back. In order to transition, let's go back to 036B, or the glyph that is on the bottom of both registers. One on the front we see half of it depicted, and on the bottom we see a complete square shape with like 4 to 5 walls. I want to point to that again before I put this next palette inside of the chat room, and we about to start getting it in right here.
Right.
Because this palette, erroneously named the Tenahu palette, I just placed it in the chat room, and if you open it up, one of the first things you should notice is 036B, right?
Right.
Right, and you see at least 7 on the top of the broken so-called Tenahu palette. We see 7 036B glyphs, which we know now represents a fortification or a town, right? So
Right.
now this is going to tell us why. We're going to break it down because they've been calling this palette the Tenahu palette for so long, but under a brief analysis, we find out the word Tenahu ain't even on the palette, all right? And there's some scholarship out there on that, but we don't even have to scrutinize the scholarship out there because we're starting to get a brief little knowledge of how these glyphs work. We see the direction everything's facing. We know where to start on this register. But I want to skip down to the bottom. So if you can scroll down on the link. Yes.
Hey, John, I'm sorry, brother. My phone dropped. I wanted to answer your question real fast. This is Rosie. My phone dropped. Okay, this is what it is. If you look at that symbol, the Egyptians or the Africans were actually insulting the people in Mesopotamia, or whoever these people were. They conquered them.
Okay.
If you notice, after Narmer conquered these people, you don't see that type of artwork no more, at all, nowhere. You don't see it no more at all anywhere. After Narmer unified Upper and Lower Egypt, that artwork is no longer in Egypt anywhere. That Jasper cylinder is no longer there. So evidently, it had to be some type of, you find coins in Narmer, in a Levant, or in certain parts of the Sinai, which shows that it was a struggle over that area, because we know the Egyptians was getting ebony wood from that area, especially from Gaza, which was called, today we call it Gaza, but earlier it was called Bablos. They was getting ebony wood and certain things. They got lapis lazuli from Mesopotamia. The Nubian A group was doing trade with those people. But evidently, if you notice, though, that artwork from pre-dynastic Egypt completely changes after the first dynasty. It appears as if, these people came somewhere else, they got slaughtered, and that's it.
You're right. And in this presentation, we're going to look at that, you call it the Jasper cylinder, Jasper seal?
Yes, sir.
What you call it? Yeah, we're going to see that develop into the Shenu in Egyptian culture as we look at some of these proto-dynastic stela. If we go to the bottom of the so-called Tenahu palette, we'll see on the very bottom register, we're going to see trees, what they call olive trees, and then you'll see a glyph to the right. Now, if any of us study it, we know we can identify this already as the throwing stick that represents foreign lands. We clearly see it on some land, and we clearly see it bent like the throwing stick. This is the same throwing stick. You can look it up. You can research it. It's the throwing stick. I wish I knew it'll be under T because that's weapons. I think the throwing stick is T14 that I called out as T21. So that's the throwing stick. Now, if you really, really go in and do the homework on the throwing stick when you get in the Gardner book, you'll find out that he gave it some attribute, some phonetic quality to represent Tenahu. But it had a new bowl behind it, and it was not drawn like this. This is not that glyph. That just means a foreign land. Well, that word or that determinative right there is what scholars use to say that this is the Tenahu palette. There's no other word on here that says Tenahu or nothing. That's it. So we can take that away. Now, since we're on this bottom register, let's go ahead and read what Francisco Raphael says about this palette. Look, it says description, Tenahu palette. But what does it say? Towns, Libyan booty, siege, trees and towns palette, Butu palette. But let's focus on that word towns, because we just seen the towns identified with O36B on the Narmer palette. Now we know these are towns on the top of this Tenahu palette. So let's go in on this, because we see it right here in our face. You know the Merho represents beloved, correct? We know that. We see, all right, for anyone who doesn't know any of these glyphs I'm talking about, we're back at the top of the Tenahu palette. Now, we got the glyph identified as a town wall. We should clearly see an animal, or the, you know what I'm saying, a zoomorphic figure of a king on top of each town center. And the glyph that looks like a sideways A that he's standing on is a Merho. Throughout the history of Kemet, this glyph was used to indicate the word beloved for the king. Beloved. So we know that this is the beloved king of that town that we're looking at on this Tenahu palette. It's not hard to
mean like an A, right? Hold on, brother. You talking about the thing that looks like an A? Am I correct?
Yes, sir. It's the yeah. If we're on well, let me slow down. I could go identify it on Gardner Sign List for everybody. If not, just look under agricultural tools in Gardner Sign List, and you'll be. Let me look right now since we got a little bit of time. Agriculture craft. It's it's U6. So if you go to Gardner Sign List, you'll see U6 or U7. And this is a tool for tilling the land, basically. And it means beloved or mer or meret, but basically we see it used here in proto-dynastic grammar, indicating that the zoo type we see on top of the Merho is the king of that region. Now, I could go in on this because clearly we're going to leave out the kings we don't know nothing about. But we know about Heru. We don't know about him as a king, but we see Heru on the top right of the, you know what I'm saying, we see the falcon on top of a Merho.
Correct.
All right, we don't know him to be a king yet. But let's go to the scorpion. Let's go to the scorpion, which is in the middle of the bottom. We see a scorpion on top of a Merho. We know this indicates the proto-dynastic king Scorpion, or Scorpion 2. One of the two. Go ahead.
Hold on. You said go back up the top about the Heru symbol, right? You were saying at this point we don't know. Correct. You said at this point we don't know him to be a king, right?
No, there's a Heru king on the, you know what I'm saying? Nobody been talking about a Heru king. But we see him right here. We see him right here.
But hold on though. But that might not be a Heru king. That might be a Dindu. We know that Dindu is a king. It's mythological kings, right? Spirit king.
All right, let me ask you.
The original symbol was a hawk.
Okay, that's the falcon. This the falcon turned down. That's my mistake saying the hawk. This when we see the bent down nose, that's the falcon. Heru. So is Dindu represented by a falcon?
Yes,
okay.
The oldest symbol,
that's an option.
Was Dindu. So that could be Dindu because he predates Heru.
But let me break this down. That's good. I'm glad you point that out, and we got to look into that option. Now, we definitely indicated Scorpion. Behind Scorpion, or to the left of Scorpion, we're going to see a pharaoh called Double Falcon. Okay, we see the totem that we seen held on the Narmer palette, except we see it's R12. If you want to look at the Gardner Sign List,
that's correct. I didn't catch that before. That's true.
Yes, we see the same two falcons, except they're smaller. They're smaller, and by use of space, all you can use to really indicate them is the tail and the beak. These are two falcons. This pharaoh in proto-dynastic, you know what I'm saying, Egypt was called, or Kemet was called double falcon. But this is something I want to point out. Scholars, this is cutting edge stuff. You got to go to a site, just Google Dynasty 00, and you should find a lot of information on it. But let's break this down, because I have a theory that double falcon might not have been one ruler. It might have been twin brothers, because we read in the grammar right here. Let me ask y'all something, and this is very simple. We know the Marho represents the beloved king. I'm calling it the Marho. It looks like the sideways A. It's Mur.
Yes.
Marut, Murray. Okay? Why, if double falcon was one pharaoh, why is there two Mur signs, one by each of the falcons who ruled that town? Do you see what I'm saying? They would have used one sign for Mur, because he would have been one beloved individual named double falcon. Instead, they used two of these signs to indicate two beloved individuals. But I haven't seen this in scholarship. If you go to Francisco Raphael's site, they think double falcon is one person, but I'm going to bring up this point of contention. But let's keep on going through it, because we got this. I don't want to be on no fairy tale stuff, but when I seen the movie Scorpion King, and then we found out that Scorpion was really a king of Kemet, I was like, oh, they was playing games. Now, if we look over to the right of Scorpion, who do you see in what could possibly be a representation of the ruler of that town or fortification that we had, the beloved ruler of that town or fortification? To the right of Scorpion, what do y'all see?
A lion. A lion.
A lion, right?
Yeah, I see a lion, yes.
Mm-hmm. So would I be so far out on an edge to say that this was the Lion King? Now, I'm going to go in on this, because I'm not going to throw nothing that sounds so silly out there, and especially to see that they got the Hollywood. They already played games with us on a Masonic level with the Lion King too, right? But let's go in. First, before we go in on that Lion King, we have to address the glyphs that are inside of these town extractions, because I would
I'm glad you're about to go there, because that definitely stood out to me too. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I would read this to say, first, the little blocks we see, if this was Middle Egyptian grammar, those are all P's. That makes no sense. Just hella P's, the P sound phonogram. No, that makes no sense. If we look at the one inside of the 036B that represented by the Lion King, we clearly see the glyphs that means Ka, the Ka glyph for spirit. The two hands up for Ka. Let's say if it has some proto-dynastic line in between it, but we know it developed into the Ka hands. Now we see the three squares under it. If we look at this in Middle Egyptian grammar, it simply says Ka'u, or the three squares represent plurality or multiplicity. You know what I'm saying? So we see Ka'u, plurality, more than just one spirit. So these are the spirits in this town, or they were called, I'm going to call them by their Meduneta term, it says Ka'u to me. And no, it's not really refutable, because we see the three strokes that always indicate the W sound for plurality, or the U sound for plurality, Ka'u, right? So now I got my theory that this is the Lion King, and his people in this town was the Ka'u. Now look at this, because if I want to take these three blocks inside of this Ka'u glyph, well, I see blocks in other glyphs. So we got to look at this as proto-dynastic grammar, what this stuff developed from. And I would say that these were initially possibly the amount of settlements within these in this town. You see what I'm saying? So if we're still looking at who I'm calling the Lion King and the Ka'u people would have possibly had three settlements within that fortification or what have you. I don't know how big one of these fortifications could have been, and we're all on theory right now. But still, we see different zoo types and different logograms or ideograms for what's inside these town walls. Now, I got to put another palette on here so y'all can clearly see I'm not playing with it. We have to, do you have, let me see if I can find this.
So before you put up that other one, I just want to say for the record, I like that one, the one with that lion on it, because that one got the Ka, and they got the blocks are in order. So that looked like an organized truth to me. The other ones look all erratic and all crazy. But the other one, that lion, like he got some things in order. So I could get down with that one.
Well, I'm glad you broke that down like that because, like I said, it could have developed from what they did on this palette to use the unification of those three settlements inside of that town to mean plurality at a later date. So I'm glad you broke that down. If we look at what I just put in the chat room, it's another palette. It should be one called the Bulls palette. The first thing you're going to see, let's let the people get to the Bulls palette.
Right.
Y'all got that open?
Yeah.
First thing we see the Bulls
Jonathan, this is this is also the site that you can click on and get you to 00 down. This is one of the ones I use very detailed. A lot of artifacts in here.
This is the best website for any pre-dynastic, proto-dynastic research. Francisco Raphael,
is that French
or whatever. Yeah, I think so.
Some parts of it is in French too.
Yeah, but they got English too. But he don't be playing with it. Like he got some.
No, I don't be playing with it. Yeah, and real quick, hold on before you jump in there. These type of information, right? When you look at certain palettes and we look at all the fossils and palettes and all that, this is what we'll be asking for when you play a little Hebrew, Muslim, Christian game, right? That's all I'll be asking for. Let me see what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So when you go to this website, you'll see what we're talking about. Plain and simple. It's all laid out for you. You can look at it and tell the story, and it's not from somebody else's culture. All right, so this is what Brother Unk be looking for. When I say I don't believe that shit, I'm asking for this detail because we have this in our own culture. So I'm saying is if you want to change me over, I need you to at least have the exact same amount of information that I got before you can begin to tell me. Just want to make that point. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, cool. I like that point. That was a good one. I want to hurry up because it seems like before we get off the air, we only got a limited time. So I want to address this Bulls palette. We're going back and back in history. Every palette, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Tenahu palette is older than the Narmer palette. Y'all can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And I also think this predates the other. But check this out. We see the bull. We damn near know every glyph on this palette right now because we've been going over. We see the bull or what have you in the forceful position, trampling over. I don't know if that's my phone or not.
I hear the echo kind of when you're talking, but I don't know. I can't tell.
No, that ain't me. Anyway, we see the bull trampling over a purple. But y'all know what? If y'all scroll down the palette already, you know why I posted it. Just scroll down the palette just a little bit and tell me what you see. The inside the town wall. Thank you. You see a lion, but he's not on top of the town section. He's inside the city walls, and he is not recumbent like the recumbent lion we know, like Horm Akhet or what have you. He is, standing, looking like he's about to drink from this new bowl. That bowl is called a nu. In Medu Neter, a lion is called Ru. R-U-R-W. That's a lion. That bowl is called Nu. Now, we know from reading the Book of the Dead or the Papyrus of Ani, we know the Hunu Neferu. The Hunu Neferu are the young soldiers, right? It's because the word Nu and Hunu Neferu, we know Neferu just means beautiful for here, it doesn't mean to use young. The word Nu and Hunu Neferu means hunter or soldier, but it really means a hunter. So right now we see on this bull palette, we trying to do proto-dynastic grammar. We see the town, we got to identify the lion is named Ru and the bowl is named Nu. So we see Ru Nu. Now if we break that down, it clearly says lion hunters. You can use the Vargas dictionary I gave you, put in the word NW and look up Nu and find any appropriate definition that would be applied to this glyph in this purpose, and you will see that lion hunters makes perfect sense. So now, I'm not saying that there were some people called the Ru. I mean, I'm proposing that from what I see, there was a people called the Ru Nu, but I'm not simply saying that there's anything else than what we're looking at to corroborate this. You see what I'm saying? But this is not done because we're still looking at this bull palette, right? We see the Ru Nu on there, right? But check this out. Let's look to the right-hand side of the palette, and we have to notice something. The same exact totems from the Narmer palette are on this palette, except they're turned to the sideways, and the bottom of them are represented like this. But if you clearly turn this palette to the side, are y'all following me? Are y'all over to the side?
I'm following you. Mm-hmm.
At those totems, if you turn it to the side, if we cropped it and turn it to the side, we will see the totem, the first one. I wouldn't say the first one to say, and we would have to even do work on what those totems are, but it was placed in the Narmer Squad group, or I think I have a photo of a facsimile of what these totems are, and we can make them out individually, who these people were fighting with whoever these zoomorphic lying people were inside of this town extraction. But now, this don't stop right here, because we got to look at all these palettes and clearly see one theme being told about pre-dynastic Kemet.
Right.
Let me get to this other one I want y'all to see. They call it the Battlefield palette. If you can find that first, is the one where we was looking at with the lion getting whooped on.
I got it.
Oh, here
I got it. Let me do it. Got it. And that's the one that Brother Nazi posted in the debate. And just, he tried to play it like
we could kill Brother Nazi right here, right now. I mean, not like that. Nazi a good brother and everything. I'm talking about that line that he said about this. Let's kill it real quick, because we know how to identify the totals, right?
Yep.
So we know how to identify who these people were, or at least who they venerated. Somebody might need to press mute or something, because that echo killing me. But now it's all good. So if we're looking at this first, let's address Brother Nazi claimed that these people came from Mesopotamia, what have you. Well, first thing we see is a bow. I mean, if we look at the top of the hunter's palette, what they call it, first thing we see is a man to the top left side holding a bow. Well, right there, to say bow, we'd say Pejet, but the bow is representing Tasseti, or the land of the bow. But he's the infantryman, the guy in the front. Take a look at the brother right behind him. What is he holding? We can identify those now. He's holding a totem, okay? Look, it's hard. I told you, look, turn your head to the side, or we have to turn it to the side, and we can clearly see the beak and the tail of the falcon Heru on that totem, okay? And now check this out again. It runs consistently throughout pre-dynastic Kemet. We can go to the opposite, to the right side of this palette, and look at the first man we see holding an identical totem. Okay, so these are Shimsu Heru, or not by definition, but they are followers of Heru, or they have Heru on their totem. All right, now let's notice something about this, because they call this a lion hunt. But now I'm learning that that is the power of a forming king being represented and his heir by this lion that we see on this palette. Let me show you a few things that break it down. First of all, what is this palette called? The Hunter's palette. This ain't the Battlefield palette. This is the Hunter's palette, the lion hunt palette. Let's break it down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now look, let's look. There are a lion and a game animal. That's established. But yet there are plenty game animals on this palette. That's the first thing to notice. Now let's scroll down the palette and identify all these game animals that are not being beseeched. They're not being sought after. If this was about, you know what I'm saying, a hunt.
Hold on 1 minute, Jonathan. Hold on 1 minute. Hold on a minute. We got a minute, 44 seconds to call in. We got another 4 hours. We're going to get to your questions and open up the calls on the line. We got about 40 people on waiting and call, right? And we're doing our thing. Brother Jonathan is breaking down the different palettes, Hunter's palette, Narmer's palette, We just going in. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Now, I was pointing out the game animals. Now, if somebody looks really closely, they're going to see only one other animal besides the lion is being sought after on this pallet, and he's being reframed or restrained with a rope by a man on the right side of the pallet, standing on the shinu or the circle, which the internal circle of that separod that we've seen on the normal pallet, it developed just into this circle right here. I don't know which direction, if they were trying to represent. If this circle came first and they took the figure of you said the Jasper seal. If they took this, if they took the figure of mythological figure from the Jasper seal and tried to merge it with this circle, but also take notice of that circle and the man to the right of it who's restraining only one game animal with a rope. You see that? He's holding like some, I'm just going to call it a deer out of lack of knowledge, you see what I'm saying? But other than that, none of the edibles, the rabbits, I see all these little game animals, they're not being sought after. So calling this a hunter's pallet is almost inadequate. They changed it to the lion's hunt pallet as if we going out with all these other game food around us just trying to go hunt and kill a lion in ancient times for no reason. As we see, the lion indicated a people or a king on various other pallets. So why would it be so preposterous to assume that this lion and his heir seen on this pallet is also representative of a king or a people being conquered or being killed by the Shimsu Heru? I do not want to leave out what looks like a proto-dynastic shrine next to two ox or two bulls at the very top of the pallet above the head of the lion. You see what I'm saying? This is an alternative way to look at this pallet, which is, verifiable. We got other attestations to show us that this is not merely what we're looking at as a lion hunt. Some can say it is. Some can say, but this is just what I propose, and this is what I'm trying to bring forward. You know what I'm saying? I want to go back and anybody, where y'all at with this one? Because I'm about to show y'all something that's going to blow that Mesopotamian thing out the water. Look at this. This is why I say that the Sephirot or the mythological creature, look at this, developed out of Kemet. Look in if you can look into the chat room at the link I just put up, you can clearly see it developing into the circle that runs consistent throughout all ancient palaces. You
Absolutely,
see what I'm saying?
I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so this is one depiction of them joining these two mythological creatures in some type of unison, which represents something. I know it to represent eternity, and the circle represents eternity, but we can clearly see it developing in Kemet and not in Mesopotamia, because we see them forming this circular figure in the middle of a stela in a different way that is normally depicted in Mesopotamian art or in Kemetic art, you know what I'm saying? And so going through these palettes, we find themes that run consistent throughout all of them, and I'm glad y'all allowed me a little bit of time to even scratch the surface on what I know is some research that my brothers could dive into and build on that, you know what I mean, and bring back something good. I mean, what? That's all we can do.
Yeah, definitely a crystal clear, easy to follow breakdown the way that you broke it down. You know, people are going to be able to pull up the links, and actually just the way that you kind of walked us through each level and each line of it, it's like very, very, clear on what you wanted to express.
Man, I appreciate it. Actually, this, how we motivate each other, being scholars or whatever. I consider myself a poet first and foremost, and my love of wisdom is out of my love of words and my love of my history. But sometimes I could be amongst the ranks of scholars and we can shoot the breeze. But as we motivate each other, you know, all of this comes out of our conversation, trying to find out where particular people come from. And so I'm glad that we can even inspire each other in such a way, you know what I mean, straight up. Because I go in, like, I'll be like, I got to spend all week doing this, you know.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I know we got some callers, huh?
Yeah. We got a call. You want to ask something? And Larry, it is your damn phone, man. As soon as I open your line back up and start doing all that, man. Come on, Larry. Tell you that's your phone, yo. You got that raggedy little feet. Yeah, yo. Yeah.
It's my phone?
Yeah, it's a double echo. Go ahead, Asar. You want to add something, brother? And then we're going to get to these callers. Go ahead, Asar.
Peace, everyone. I know I'm coming into the conversation super late.
Peace,
so I didn't catch most of the show.
Peace.
I wanted to make a suggestion in terms of part of the interpretation. I'm looking at, I don't know what the the name of this palette is, but the Tehenu, I think was the Tehenu JPEG. It's the one with the fortified cities and totems on the top.
Right.
I would suggest probably that, and this is just my guess, and so I'm not making this definitive, but probably looking at it also simply as not necessarily individual kings, but actual totems for clans itself, not necessarily the king. And the reason why I say this, like if you go back to the bull palette, my cross comparing with inter-African cultures, the rope symbol is usually a sign of lineage. Like how we would say a line today, or like a link in the chain. They didn't have chains back then, they had ropes. And so words for ropes, usually had to deal with lineage. And so when you're looking at the netra poles that they are on, the what we call the standard, all of these, like Egypt isn't the only one with the so-called netra poles. You find them even to this day amongst the Yoruba, amongst the Bakongo people, and they all deal with the dead or an ancestor. And so my first inkling when looking at it is that, these are either the totems, or like to be like the first like kings or whatnot of a particular lineage. And so, it may be that whoever this particular palette is being dedicated to, these totems here is just letting everyone know from what line or what lineage he's from. In the grander scheme of things. That's just a guess. We would have to look at this a little bit more deeply. But I know for a fact that in Africa, especially West and Central Africa, the netra poles are used to denote ancestors specifically. And so, it may, and then again, I'm looking at this concept of, like the hand, like if it looks like, I'm not all that clear, I really can't make it out, but it looks like the totem poles at the bottom of them, and I'm looking at the bull palette again. It looks like there's hands grabbing the rope.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a drawing of this, and those are indeed hands, or they look like what are hands holding the rope. And it's basically the totems are simply turned to the side, but you're right.
Yeah. And so, usually signs with hands is usually, again, it's an issue of ancestors who lend a helping hand. And I've interpreted this, again, based on inter-African and Nile Valley cultures. Let's say, for instance, I know you're familiar, Brother Jonathan, with Akhenaten's relief where the sun, Aten, is reaching down its rays are reaching down. It has hands at the end of the rays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you familiar with that one?
I'm very familiar.
I know I am. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so the interpretation is that, you know, he's calling out to his ancestors, you know, that's represented by the sun or a great ancestor to lend a helping hand. And so, you know, again, this is just from, you know, again, it's not definitive. You know, I'm going off of, like, you know, especially like in Tigrigne or culture, like that's their symbolism, and the word for hand is almost similarly pronounced as the word aten, in especially like Tigrigne in Ethiopia, and the people in Eritrea and things of that nature. And so, you know, I just want to throw that out there, and maybe, you know, you play with that in the future.
You know what?
That
and that's interesting, because amongst the Muslims, you'll always hear them say, "Hold on to the rope of Allah." All right? Very interesting. They say it all the time. What are they saying hold on to? Hold on that which extended from Allah, or the lineage from Allah. See? You see where they got those statements and those phrases from. And so once you really study your culture, you kind of understand that. You get a real over. That's why you can't. Go ahead.
No, you talking.
No, I'm gonna defer. I just wanted to kind of make that point, though, where they get that shit from. But go ahead.
I was just adding. Sorry about that. I was just adding that it was interesting what Asar points out, and it's unfortunate that we'll never know, because this is a broken pallet. And so we'll never know what this rope can. I mean, as far as in this instance, we don't know what this rope connects to, or what it actually represents in the broken portion of the, you know what I'm saying, of the stela. Oh, not even stela, but of the pallet. And so maybe if there are other instances, because we clearly seen a rope being used on the Narmer pallet to hook the nose of the foreigner, or to hook the separads or whatever. But it could have been, since the middle of this palette is broken out, it could have been doing something similar to that. But these are definitely totems in some form or other or fashion.
And they all connecting to that rope.
Yeah, like
unifying, bringing together.
Like for instance, if any of y'all have, I don't know the exact page, but I even quoted it in my Aluja book. But Dr. Christopher Eric, in his book Civilizations of Africa, he talks about the Bantu words for villages, and how the words for villages is really a word for rope or to tie. Because in the Bantu languages, you know, the concept is that, you know, we're a group of families that are tied together. Again, this rope, lineage type stuff. And if you have any of Dr. Foucault's works, he's always talking about this biogenetic rope that ties you and all the ancestors back to the primary ancestor, which is the creator. And so it's interesting that this, and it's kind of hard to explain for those who don't really kind of read and transliterate Metanetra, but a word for village in the ancient Egyptian language is, we transliterate it as lowercase m, capital A, and then lowercase a. We you know, would articulate it as ma. But my linguistic analysis argued that this word means mulungu or mulongo. And this word lunga is the word that is used for to tie or to bind. And it has the same connotations in ancient Egypt as far as the word for village, and it's the same word for, like, for anybody who knows about the word ma'at. Ma'at is the same word, just with a T suffix. And it's a word for rope, guide rope, and things of this nature. It's the same word. They're playing on the homonyms. And so you see the same kind of logic in ancient Egyptian culture and language. And so this is what has me looking at the ropes a little differently than this is just being some random rope that you just find on the relief. but they're connected psychologically with Inner Africa, where they use ropes to denote lineage.
That's interesting. So that's interesting. So there you go again. You gotta learn. We study African culture in its totality, and so we can get the meanings of stuff like broken fragments and stuff, and you can and see that helps you get a better understanding. You know what I'm saying, across the board. If you don't understand African culture, then you wouldn't even be able to connect that right there. That's a good point. That's why we study all of Africa. All right, because it's gonna give you that. It's very interesting there. Yeah, so we had one of those Black African power moments for the people. Now y'all understand why we study Africa in this totality, right? We look at all the civilizations and we see an interconnectedness with them, and you can learn a lot from each culture. All right, and so let me take the first caller right here. Hey Larry, you want to add something real quick? If I go to this line callers. Oh, it took too long. 314, the line is open. Black African Power. 314, your line is open. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's done. All right. 347, your line is open. 347, your line is open. All right. Let's be listening. All right. 909, your line is open. Black African Power. What's good, brother?
This is a good ass show right here, man. You know, don't let them brothers get y'all off y'all square, man, because they can't even break down nothing in Israel or, you know, Iraq about these anthropological, you know, analysis y'all bring. I want to add the brother who's made the comparison with the relief, being that he just showed really a connection between those palettes. I want to ask him, do we feel like when you see like they denote Namor with the catfish symbol, and I wanted to know, do we feel like the reason why, you know, we would see that a reoccurring theme for all pharaohs? You know, why is that I can't find it?
Whoa. You mean a reoccurring thing for all pharaohs that they were denoted with the catfish symbol?
No, being that he would be the first pharaoh, he would be, you know, you would get referenced as a catfish symbol because he being the father of a lineage.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point that you made, and I think as far as Kemet is concerned, that practice took place a little bit later, because if the way that they would not use their personal name, or they would follow their Horus name, and so their Horus name would be an indicator of that they descended from this first king or what have you. As far as I understand it, I don't see the tradition of, like, Hittites use Labarna, and you know, they Romans some people use Caesar, and all of the kings were named that, and we even had tons of Ramses.
With the Scorpion's mace.
Pardon me?
The Scorpion's mace.
What about it? Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Yes, I have.
I seen that Scorpion king when I made that analysis, and I asked my professor that, and he kind of smiled. And I'm like, and when you brought up the bull, I'm like, they run it from 3 different symbols: the scorpion, the catfish, you know what I mean, and the lion.
This is why we think that these may have been personal names of the kings and not used as epithets, because we find them inside of the Sherek. And typically, epithets are placed outside of the Sherek or following the holy encasing of the Shenu or Sherek or whatever they use. So we thought we deal with them as personal names and not epithets. But that is a good point that you pointed that out, that no other kings were followed to be indicated by the catfish. So we think that's his personal name. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But if you could speak on how the brothers bring it up, the Scorpion's mace, and see the connection you got with that first. They look similar, brother.
Well, let me break this down. I'm glad you brought that up because first thing we need to know is the scorpion mace and the Narmer pallet was found together. We might think in history like they was found in two different locations. They was both found in the Ken or Heracleopolis, and they were found in I think the Temple of Heru, if I'm not mistaken. They were found together. And here's something to notice, because we looked at that rosette. Behind the rosette or the flower glyph above the sandal bearer of Narmer. Now, if we go to the scorpion mace head, what we going to see? We going to see that rosette above under the scorpion. You see what I'm saying? So this is another theory that I'm going to have to do more research on, that scorpion might have indeed been Narmer's sandal bearer. And this is not my theory. You could probably Google scorpion Narmer sandal bearer and find some scholarship on that. But this is why we're looking at these glyphs, because we see this rosette above the sandal bearer of Narmer. And then we see the same flower symbol on the scorpion mace head above the scorpion or below the scorpion. So some people will be like, oh, scorpion or scorpion 2 was Narmer's sandal bearer, which could be the case, or that rosette or that flower doesn't mean sandal bearer. It indicates a personal name also, and it would have still been scorpion. Like, so that's crazy, something to look at. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's deep. Okay. Appreciate that, brother.
Wow.
Thank you.
Ryan, want to add something? You was going to say something, Saul?
No, I mean, I was going to say something kind of earlier. It's kind of past. But when he mentioned the word Sarek, that still survives in Hausa language, and it simply means king. And for those, again, who read Meta Nature, you know that the Sareks were these ropes that was designed in a certain way, and you would see the name of the king inside them or on top of them in the case of the Sarek. When you look at the cartouche, it's the earlier ones were, again, ropes, but the ropes were used for homonyms. It's a word for king, like Ohene, or we say Shinu, but it's Ohene, it's Oshinu, in various different African languages, and again, it's just another word for king. And so, you know, these symbols that surround the names of the king, you just read it as king somebody, king this, king that, based upon the Rubens principle that plays on the homonyms of words. But you know, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes because, again, we have to keep Manetho in mind when he's talking about these pre-dynastic god kings. And so, you know, these earlier totems, you know what I'm saying, I mean, these names for kings may not necessarily be a real king themselves, but you know, right, a founder of a particular clan. And these could be just clan symbols. Like, I was just reading something today about a Bantu people in Central Africa, and all throughout the text they keep talking about the crocodile people, the crocodile clan, you know, and so their symbol is a crocodile. So if you were to see some relief, you know, of them, you know, with a crocodile, you know that this is dealing with a people and not necessarily a king or something to this nature. And so it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a delicate thing. You know, we got to, say research it a little more. But, you know, that's something that I'm looking into, you know, really kind of definitively saying, okay, this is really a king itself, like a specific king, or this is really more so a clan. And so, you know, but anyway.
Well, I don't know if that was ancient people, the crocodile clan, but we do, looking through, since we're dealing with proto-dynastic Kemet, we have what they call him, Horus Crocodile, a proto-dynastic. See, when they talk about these, we know for a fact they don't have too much information on any proto-dynastic pharaoh or what have you, so all we have to look at is names found in Shreks. And if they find 2 falcons in a Shrek, we assume that this must have been Pharaoh double falcon, where they found crocodile, even crocodile. They found stork. They found various of these other people we even see located inside of towns' walls on certain pallets as, as pro-dynastic, what could be kings or what have you.
Now, what's ill is with the crocodile, one of the crocodile deities, at least of the Sudan, was called Sebek, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When you go into, I think it's Benin, the Benin worship an alligator deity by the name of Sabongo. Now, we say Sebek because it's Egyptology speak, but, and there's a linguist who wrote for the Ark Journal, the one that's headed by Dr. Theophilo Wabinga, and she talks about this, and she did the linguistic analysis and everything. So this is, at least West African-like. This is how you would say that word for alligator and lizard, Sabongo. But it's still it's a totem out there, I think, in Benin. And it's a spirit, it's a god that they worship, and it's the same name as what you would find in the Nile Valley.
Mm-hmm. I just put in the chat room King Crocodile, so people won't look at us crazy when we talk about the Lion King and the Crocodile King. You can clearly see the scholarship from Digital Egypt where they've identified King Crocodile. And so,
is there anything for a scorpion deity or a catfish deity that we can make some correlation with?
No, This is the thing that I encourage people to do. Is just like what Brother Unc said. You really kind of have to study African cultures and kind of draw from them, because it may not necessarily see the words that we're using in terms of deities. You have to be able to distinguish certain deities. There are deities that existed before human beings. These are like your primal deities. But there are also deities who were once human beings, who are elevated to the same level as those spiritual entities that, did not develop into human form. And so these spirits, and this is another thing, just because you have a clan or like title, that doesn't mean it's necessarily the name of the king itself. You just take on the spirit. And even the word for, I wish, because I have an example amongst the collagen folks, and these are the folks that you got to really kind of pay attention to. The collagen people are Nilo-Saharan speaking people who live in various parts of the Nile Valley, from the Sudan all the way to Tanzania. And their oral tradition says that they came from a land called, a city called To in ancient Egypt. And this is what we would know as Jo or Jedu, the land of Osiris or whatnot in the Delta area. And they used to be they're a military clan. And it's a brother by the name of Kipkoech Arap Sambu who wrote 2 books, one on the linguistics and one on just the culture of the collagen people. And one of the things that he was talking about on his section, like he has a whole section on totems and what totems mean. And so he's like, these words, even though you may see the symbol for a totem, the word isn't the name for the symbol. So like how we're saying the alligator, totem, the lion totem, the hawk totem, the word for the totem would not necessarily match the name for the actual item. So it wouldn't be hawk, alligator, lion. It would have the word attached to it would be a word that brings about a certain characteristic that is associated with it. So if we're talking about a lion, it may be the word for that totem may be a word for power, aggressiveness, or if it's a hawk, for insight or for precision or something to this nature, because they're really trying to highlight the characteristics that is personified in the totem. And so it's just a whole bunch involved that we just can't just on the surface just look at it and say that's it. You really kind of have to look at the cultures. And so, my thing is I'm looking at all these cultures that claim that their ancestors came from Egypt. And I'm looking at all of their cultural, motifs, the psychology and the language. and seeing how they just live their life on a normal basis and using that as a basis to go back and interpret, say ancient Egypt phenomenon. And so, these quote-unquote gods aren't necessarily gods, they're just ancestors on some level. And they may have found the village, and so they venerate the first ancestor who set up, the customs and the rituals or whatnot for everybody who came after. And so that symbol just may be an aspect that talks about a particular type of characteristic of that leader. And it's not necessarily that they venerated the alligator, they venerated the lion, or anything to that nature. And so it's a lot involved. But I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I agree. I just didn't. But Egypt has reoccurring themes. Most African cultures do. I just wonder if anybody had anything about in relation to a scorpion period and why we wouldn't see it as a recurrent theme in Egypt.
Well, I got a theory as to why we didn't see it, but we all on conjecture now. But I can give you some strong conjecture. I say Scorpion got pushed far out of Egypt. The king Scorpion, whatever he represented. But see, we have to first distinguish whether he was on Narmer's side, whether Narmer actually fought with him. We don't even know truly what he did. But in a theory that he might have fought against Narmer, one that we proposed before seeing this little Rosetta thing on both his palette and Narmer's palette, and a theory, he might have got pushed into the Mesopotamian areas. The reason why I say that is because about the same time in Sumer, we find a king named Scorpion pop up out the blue. Now, that could clearly be a coincidence. It could not be strong enough to even support my theory. But his name, and I think we can Google his name, Zuqaqip, Zuqaqip. That's going to take you straight to Scorpion. Let me type that in my Google, see if it works. Zuqaqip, Zuqaqip. Bow, the king of Kish. So right here, but it ain't going to tell you that means scorpion, I don't think. But I could tell you it means scorpion. Zuqaqip means scorpion in the Sumerian vernacular. And he is almost content. Well, the dating of the Kishite kings. This is another thing, because he was proto-dynastic to Sumer. You see what I'm saying? The Kishite kings are the precursor to the Sumerians. And so finding a king named Zuqaqip, which means scorpion in Sumerian, just gave me a theory and maybe Scorpion got mashed so far up that he had to go up to Mesopotamia and set up shop.
And your teachers, I will go to that artifact again and to answer your thesis real strongly, because they like to brag on Mesopotamia and the agriculture. He is holding a hoe in his hand. So he could be the one bringing that knowledge of agriculture to that area. So we can still show a strong Kemetic influence, all based off that theory right there you just brought.
Exactly. And another thing, we know that Ho also means he is the beloved king. So we can look at that as an indication of his rulership, on that palette or whatever.
Now that's interesting. We got to be careful with the agriculture thing, because agriculture goes back 15,000 years in the Middle East, and it was brought over there by people of the Nile called the Natufians, and it was already over there. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be careful with that. We got to also look at the artwork too. Again, that artwork, you don't see that in pre-dynastic Egypt. A lot of like, for example, in the Cajun period, the artwork is not like that with that jasper cylinder. In the Badarian period, the artwork is not like that. In the first half of the Nakata period, it's not like that. In the second Nakata period, it wasn't like that. You don't start seeing artwork like that until the third half of the Nakata period, as if these are other people from somewhere, because you don't see it in the Badarian, you don't see it in the Cajun, you don't see it in none of the Badarian periods. You only see it in the third half of the Nakata period before the third dynasty that we know.
To add to that, but to add to it, I just want to say, to support what you're saying, we all know that the third Nakata period, or Nubia C group, is supposedly when the foreign pottery and different stuff start coming in. So if that's when
Right.
they appear, it's consistent with the archaeology. You know what I'm saying?
Not to mention the Nubian A group was doing trade in those areas 12,000 years ago, and the Nubian C group was doing trade with Mesopotamians for a long time. Lapis lazuli was important coming from those areas. We don't develop that in the continent. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think that.
What'd you say? Lapis lazuli. How you say that in Goldie? Hold on. How you say that Goldie? Lapis
lazuli, the blue stone. Lapis lazuli. You find it in
you really.
River.
Yeah, Oxen River. That's exactly where you find it at. All the way up the Oxen River. Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, you like you brought up something. You and Jonathan, those bowls that they got on the hunter side on the makeup box as you presented, it comes from India. And then you got the Oxen, which is the Oxen River where the lapis lazuli is coming from. Something's going on. They got a trade route going on between these two groups of people for a long time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I remember we did some homework on the shape of those bowls when we were investigating that the first time. But if we come to look at the original determinative for Tasseti, it's not the straight Nubian bow. It's actually that curled bow, and they call that the horn of an orchard. Or I don't know this animal, but I know what Gardner called it. He said it's the horn of an orchard, or ORCE, whatever that is, orchard. I don't know. That's what my memory is recalling. And but if you look at the glyph for the bow, which is the pageant, we'll see they got two of them. One is that straight Nubian bow, and one is the other bow that's curled at the top that we assume came from the Mesopotamian area, and quite as well could have.
Now, it goes. Do you know anything about the scorpion outside of Africa?
Do I know anything about scorpions outside of Africa?
Yeah, in terms of cosmology to culture, stuff like that.
You find scorpions in Arabia, like that vulture symbol. The vulture is a bird that developed around in Arabia. If you look up the history of the origin of the bird, so no, I don't know nothing about a symbol of a scorpion outside of that part of Africa. Outside of Africa, outside of the Nile. No, I don't know nothing about it. I've never seen it in nothing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, didn't you say something about the Scorpion King and the Acadians? You're trying to put that together.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you look at the movie, I was with you on that, Jonathan. I was saying it with you. I'm with you on that because if you look at the movie is mythical, but if you look at the movie Scorpion King, this dude was Akkadian, and then you look at the scorpion origin is around. It's around in Arabia. You find them all through Arabia. Then you study the movie Scorpion King. This dude was Akkadian. They call him Scorpion King the Akkadian. So who was Narmer fighting? Was he fighting a dude from Arabia, the eastern border of the Arabian Desert, who came into Egypt? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of those symbols you see in those areas first before they're in Egypt. But after Narmer beat the shit out of these people, you don't see that artwork no more at all. It's as if they got their shit pushed back. You don't see it no more at all. You just see it pushing back into Mesopotamia again, or that area, Central Asia or the Middle East or somewhere back towards their way. Why is that?
And on top of that, the name Scorpion appearing, they say 2900 BC, but you know how erroneous that dating could go back a couple hundred years to about, to the time of Narmer. So, it's a plausible theory.
Interesting. Scorpion King the Akkadian, huh?
Possibly. I didn't say he was. It's a possibility that he was. I'm not saying he is, but I'm just saying.
They showed the Nubians, what's that black brother name that played in the green now, right? Siding with him on the affair. It's Narmer.
Exactly.
Go ahead, say that again.
The Duncans dude that died.
Well, from my indications, he said,
right? Narmer was supposed to be an African, but in the movie he portrayed as some cracker. They got The Rock playing the Arcadian. The Arcadian gets the side of the Nubian on going against Narmer.
But that happened all the time. Because we know that the Nubians, let's just go in on it though. The Nubians always kind of like been mercenaries before the Moors. Like, you see what I'm saying? The Nubian, because I know Moors as historical mercenaries too, but as far as Nubians is concerned, they were hireable. Meaning that if you was going to bread them out or give them something, they was going to roll with you. So it never really, and we know this because the Egyptian army consists of Nubians. regardless of whether Nubia had funk with, you know what I'm saying, with Kemet. I mean, a lot of the time, the Mija or what have we would still be straight consistent Nubians. So, you know.
Not to mention, I'm glad you're going in. The Mija is the modern day Bija, people in Egypt. I mean, in Egypt and in Sudan. Not to mention, everybody in Sudan was the same tribe in that part of Nubia. So even with Amos, when he took over the 18th dynasty and pushed out the Hyksos, he employed Cushites. He employed Nubians. And then turned around and went against a few Nubians who was doing some other crazy shit, or people in that area. You had different tribes in Sudan. And my argument for Pianki now, the only reason why they went and conquered Egypt in the 25th dynasty, they took Egypt from the Libyans, the Berbers, and the Sea People. After Ramesses III got his throat slit, after the 25th, after he was killed or murdered or whatever, that's when you see the Libyans take over. After the Libyans and those Sea People take over, Pianki, they stopped employing the Nubians. They stopped employing Cushites. They started employing foreigners like those Macedonian-type people that was coming into North Africa in 500 BC and other periods. They would start employing them. They stopped employing the Cushites. So I believe that the Cushites only went up there to fight because the niggas stopped employing them. They wanted their setback, yo. That's all it was. The Berbers stopped employing them. So then they took over Egypt from them. They took it from them. They had nothing to do with them.
Say it again.
I will
25th dynasty? Yeah, I'll argue down about that, yo. You talking about the 25th dynasty? You talking about the 25th dynasty?
Yes. Listen, let me explain what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when the Libyans, this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when the Libyans, the Berbers, the Amazigh people, when they took over Egypt after Ramesses III died, this is when you see the Libyans and the Sea People take over. They take over Egypt. They stopped employing the Cushites. The Cushites was not getting any work from these people. They started employing other types. I'm talking about towards the 24th and the 23rd dynasty. They stopped employing the Cushites. This is before the 25th dynasty.
Go ahead.
And what I'm saying is that the Cushites, they had to have an issue with them not being employed because they started employing a lot of people from Macedonian type people and other types of Euro-Asians. They started employing everybody else except the indigenous people of the region. So the Cushites only went up there to restore Egypt and to restore the old system of Kemet and also to make up for what they wasn't getting. If you not feeding me and I'm in this area all this time, who the fuck you think you is? So they go up and they push their shit back. They push them out. And that's when Pianki take over and restore the old ancient Egyptian customs again. That's what I'm saying.
Because they wouldn't employ them.
But I would say that and more or less, remember they still control it now because it flow up. So I think it was a lot of politics over them dams because they can shut all of that down by just damming it up, starting in the south.
Yeah, but see, those Berbers was on some cutthroat shit in that 24th and 23rd dynasty. They wanted to take control of all of the Nile. The land of Yam is... Go ahead, brother.
I'm just going to give a quick, what you said. You got to, don't forget, Ngozi broke down the economic reasons why. They could have shut down whatever. We have a theory that they could have shut down the dam and shut down the flow of what? Really, the fish, like they wasn't going to stop all the water. And look, he talking about they stopped hiring them for the military, which would be another cause of the upheaval or what have you.
Exactly.
I mean, when I say dams, I mean, when we look at Narmer, right, the story given to Narmer is that he established that unification through a dam. Am I right?
Yeah, but that's way after. That's way after. When we talk about that dam that Narmer built, the whole goal was Egypt controlled most of the known world at that time. They controlled West Asia, half of West Asia, and they control, if they got control of Nubia, they got control of the land of Yam, which is west of the Sahara, which I believe in one book it says the land of Yam was Niger Congo or Cameroon, that Cameroon area. They were doing trade with the Cushites of Sudan and sending resources up through Sudan up to Nile. So if you take control of Nubia, you're taking control of the routes in the land of Yam, which is west of the Sahara, and you're taking control, if you take Egypt, you're also taking control of the Levant area, the Gaza Strip, which is Gaza. They call it Gaza today, but back then it was Byblos. This is where they're getting their ebony wood from. And you're taking control of the Oxum River where the lapis lazuli is. So if you became a pharaoh in Egypt, you had money. You had control of all that shit. That's why they kept going in and out of West Asia like Tutmosis III in the Battle of Megiddo. Ramesses II. They kept going in and out of West Asia fighting against those other types of Asiatics that they was getting out of order. They didn't want those Asiatics to get in play because it was going to stop the money that was flowing in. That's what was going on. They kept giving them bitches touch-ups to keep them in line, yo.
Let me make a quick point. Reason I wouldn't agree to the war effort, because that's like in America, where you need to put an army in battle to make money. Like you need to put a tank in and you need to shoot bullets. You know what I'm saying? That's how you really make your money. You start a damn war. I'm not thinking back then that the Cushites was wanting to send their babies to war just to get some money. You had a lot of more resources than just war, bro. So I would never think that they would get mad at you not wanting to put the young babies in battle. You know what I'm saying? That ain't make. Let me finish my point though. I'm not saying that'd be a good reason. I would opt to the side of the loyal Egyptians controlling trade, not playing fair. We know the Nubians traded with the Hyksos. Didn't have a problem with that, right? But I would never say that the reason you went up there to fight a war was based off that, because think about it. They didn't stay up there at all. You know what I'm saying? They went up there, they straightened up things, they went back. They didn't knock the leadership off the throne. They didn't do that. It was several different kings ruling together up there. They could have smashed them out. They didn't do that.
But what I'm saying is, if you get the book called Ancient Nubia, The Daily Life of the Ancient Nubians, it said that in the 25th dynasty, when Pianki did what he did, he restored Egypt and he started employing Nubians again, and they went back south. The way the book is presented in a book called The Daily Life of the Ancient Nubians.
Wait, stop. You said what? Pianki started? Who started employing? When
Pianki went up there,
okay,
he restored the old customs of Egypt from those Berbers.
Correct.
That's who he was fighting. That's who he was fighting against. And what he did was he employed the Nubian Cushitic groups that was out there, because you had a lot of them up there. He started employing them again in the military, and then they went south. Not to mention, they had to leave from the northern parts of Narmer because of weather, the eco-zones over there in that area. So they moved Moreau further south. They moved Moreau further south. That's what I'm saying.
So you saying that Pianki went up there, ran across some of his Nubian brothers in the Delta, and employed them? So you saying he went up there?
No. It didn't happen like that overnight. It was already issues going on with those Berbers. Those Berbers took control of most of the Delta and all the resources. Nubians wasn't getting they basically wasn't getting shit. They wasn't getting no money or nothing. They kind of rejected them or treat them like they wasn't getting nothing. The Nubian group. The Nubians went up there because they wasn't eating like they were supposed to. The Tamil, who had control of all the motherfucking the Delta regions and all the area, all the resources that was coming in and out. So he went up there to restore the ancient Egyptian customs, and when he did that, he turned around and employed the people that wasn't eating up there. That was part of their part of their genetic markers, part of who they were.
Bringing the code in. I don't see the Nubians as being broke like that.
You don't see them. Come on, man. In certain areas,
always gold and everything always came out the south, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, we got to be careful of who was controlling the South. If somebody controlling certain things and you're not eating, they down there, but that don't mean you eating. Shit, there's people in Cameroon right now. They got full of diamond over there, but they still broke as hell. They ain't eating like they supposed to if somebody else controlling the resources. I mean,
I reject that because the resources down there in Punt. That's a lot of resources down there, bro.
I'm saying. You gotta break it down.
Hold on.
I'm just gonna add to it. It's not like he's saying not eating like they famine or going through something.
Exactly.
He's saying they was being excluded from the economy that Kemet has set up. For instance, let's break this down. They had a relationship where they had the viceroy of Kemet was always of Nubian, basically, ethnic Nubian, or I would say Nehesi, because of the fact that he could even communicate and deal with these areas of lands that were very important to the economic power structure as far as Kemet was concerned. They had to come down there to get the gold. But hold on, I just want to end real quick. They had to come down to get the gold, but the mutual relationship was that Kemet would hire their army, the Nubian army, to be employed up in Kemet. He's saying they cut off the relationship and stopped hiring basically the army of Nehesi, and they were still basically
the economy of Egypt is based in Nubia.
It might, but listen though, brother. We saying it, but we listen though.
The Nubians, that's what we saying about the relationship of the gold being sold cheaper or higher.
Listen to what we're saying. We agree with you. Those Tamahus, you find Tamahu rulerships or certain things in Nubia. You find like a whole city of Tamahus controlling that part of Nubia at one time period. It was the Tamahu, the Berbers and the Sea people that made way for the Syrians to question Hakra because they still had a grudge against them. Syria, I mean, like they opened up the doors and sent the Syrians in to help destroy Tahakra. They opened up the doors for them, yo. What I'm trying to say is that yes, they did. That Nubia was the place to get. If you took over Nubia, you got every damn thing. You get what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is that even though the Nubians had that, they wasn't in control. These Berbers completely took over every goddamn thing at one time period. And then Pianki restores it, get everything back in order, and then goddamn he started employing his people again. Later on, after the 25th dynasty, in the late part of the 26th dynasty, you start to see those Syrians come in. Who's making way for the Syrians? The damn Berbers and the Sea people that were still up there in those areas. And after the Syrians, goddamn it, they get pushed back by the Persians. Persians lose to the Greeks. The Greeks lose to the Romans. That's just what happened.
We gotta remember. I mean, like you pointed out, I'm just trying to make it plain and clear. If Egyptians was coming down to Nubia to get gold, first of all, Kemet controlled the area of Nup, the area of Nup. It was controlled by Kemet. You know what I'm saying? It was Nubians probably helped them in the mines or what have you, but it was a vassal. The viceroy was considered the king of that area as a vassal of the pharaoh. You know what I'm saying? So that area was kind of somewhat, even though it was in Nubia, it was allowed to be controlled by Egypt because of this economic relationship. They got the gold, did what they did with it amongst the northern trade routes, and in turn, so to speak, I'm not saying this is in turn, basically, they hired the army of Nubia, or they hired the Mijah, and they did this for a while. Now, once the army stopped getting hired, but they still coming in here to get the gold, is what they saying they wasn't eating. They basically got cut out of the economic relationship. They weren't hired as the army of these people who were still coming into Nubia or attempting to come into Nubia to get this gold. We got to look at when the Cushites first took over Egypt. They didn't do it all at once either, because before Pianki, we got to remember it was, I assume, who was his father, Kashta or whatever, and he did not even go into Lower Egypt at all. He just took over Upper Egypt and secured a part of the area. And I think it was Pianki later who was like, trick that, we taking all this and went into Lower Egypt. So,
I mean, you just explained. I think you explained it better to me, brother. Because, I mean, bottom line, he was fighting against those Berbers and those goddamn Sea people.
But they went back south. I could see them having an issue with the second transaction with gold. I could see them hearing about issues with trade with the Berbers and the Egyptians. I could see them going down there, shutting shit down, reestablishing their merchants, and going back home in the safer business.
But you know the trick. But you got to watch that, though, brother. Everybody didn't go back south. But see, this is the thing, bro.
Hold on. What you talking about?
What I'm saying is everybody didn't go back south. Just because Tahaka went back south and Pianki went back south, you had, huh?
Well, the Ugg said that Pianki went back home, right?
Yeah, he went back home.
He went back home.
They all went back home. I ain't let them there, them niggas.
Hey, listen, he went back home.
They wildin'. And, hold on, and I reject the fact because Kush or Nubia never got conquered way up to the Roman time. Whoa, hold on, though. I just want to make that clear. They had the longest running government in the history of mankind. They did not get conquered. While Lower Egypt was getting the brakes beat off because they want to mix their seed, right? Let's get that established. They mix their seed. Right, yeah. They hired foreign mercenaries and did all that bullshit, the shit we do in North America right now today. They weakened their culture, right? Them niggas eased their way in and fucked their shit up. But down there in Kush, niggas stayed strong with what they was doing, right? And you don't find them getting conquered way up into Roman time, yo. Think about that now. That's important. It's a very, very important point. So they wasn't worried about their army being employed amongst them. That didn't stop from Karma and from Karma and all them areas from doing what they was doing. Obviously, they made it swell without the rest of the motherfuckers around. Let's not, it's not act like Egypt when Egypt went and all that, them niggas did their thing, yo. The powder player, all that. They ain't need none of them niggas. I'm just saying, I know I'm further south. I just want to make a point.
I got your point, but look, you a little bit further south and you a little bit time period in a different time period. Like, I understand that.
We talking about, you get my point, though? You get my point, though, right?
Because we talked about this. I get your point, but let me reiterate. Taharka didn't say shit about Kush. He wasn't talking about no Kush government. He left an autobiography. It's called Kawa 5, and he didn't mention the word Kush on it. He said he came from Taseti when his brother called him up to Kemet. So now we know whatever was going on in Kush at the time wasn't enough to keep Taharka there. He was with the dignitaries of Taseti.
Why we separate politics in Now Valley if it's not one?
No, because it ain't. We have, as far as scholarship is concerned, we have to respect the difference that the people. If the people back then called it different places, we got to call it that too.
Exactly.
No. Listen to your reference. You said his brother. He didn't refer to it in the political term as if they were a separate nation, right?
What do you mean? No. I hope you get what I'm saying.
The scholars present Egypt, Kush, and the relationship in Taseti, all this different time periods of different empires with different philosophies. You see the Nile Valley civilization, right? You see it in the same way when my brother called me up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not saying I'm talking geographically, right? And as an answer to what Ankh was saying about what was going on in Kerma at the time, geographically he wasn't in Kerma. He was blessing the Taseti sky because they got what they call the 4 omens. And one of the omens was the sky of good rain. This is the 4 omens of a new pharaoh coming into play. One of them was the sky of good rain over over Taseti. The Nubian rain, I'll call it, no other, Nubian rain, which flowed into Egypt, was a good omen for a new king coming in. So as he described his 4 omens, he described how he was in Taseti, which is geographically in the areas of Ta-Nehesi, not as far down south as Ankh was talking about where the things were popping. So I'm not saying he's not from there, but I'm like, at the time we talking about, if we want to be appropriate with our titles, he was with the Nubians or people of Taseti when his brother called, or his majesty called him up to Kemet. You know what I'm saying?
Let me tell you why I made that point. Let me tell you why I made that point. Why would you have to go with his father all the way down the Nile, right? Because the way y'all saying it is, they wasn't employing people, right? Why wouldn't you just go right down the street? Because
it wasn't.
This is my point. No, you hear what I'm saying? If you're doing that goddamn bad and you need your people employed, I mean, why wouldn't you just go out to your brothers? Because we know the foundation of Nubia is what? Is Kush. Foundation of Kush is what?
Well, what you mean? Why wouldn't you just go down? You gotta respect the trade routes. You gotta respect the trade routes. You know that Kemet or that area is if they could cut off their whole economic trade situation with Mesopotamia and the rest of the world.
Who cares?
Kemet could do that to Nubia.
No, the South can because the Nile flow up. The Nile flows up.
Hold on. I just want to make it known. I just want to make it known.
If the Nile flow up, right, and you Nubian, and you got beef with Egyptians, Kemites, right, and you hop in the Nile and it's flowing up, it's taking you to Kemet, and when you're trying to do trade with people, beyond Kemet, you encounter a problem once you get to Kemet. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you can
geography. We were talking geography. We can find archaeological dams all out the Nile.
To back Jonathan, even to back what Jonathan's saying, even when Amos took over, right? Because Amos, evidently, these people were not the same people. When Amos took over and pushed them Hyksos out, them Hyksos was trying to send letters to the Nubians, as if they already had some type of relationship going in certain areas, yo. They had some type of relationship going on because the Nubians was doing trade with the world before the Egyptians was. And according to Hatshepsut, her cousin, Queen Ati, who lived in Punt, that's modern-day Eritrea. The same Eritrea, or the same part of northern Ethiopia that conquered Kush. People don't know somebody.
Hold on, you said Ngozi. You said who?
What I'm saying is that Hatshepsut.
No.
She said.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Hatshepsut, they were not the same type. These are different types. These are different groups of Africans. What I'm trying to say is that they're not the same people. I'm just backing what the brother was saying. Those Nubians in Sudan was doing trade with the known world before Egypt. What I'm trying to say is that when them Egyptians took over and kicked out the Hyksos, during this time, this is a whole other group of people. Most of these people was coming from Eritrea, which is Punt. We already got to what Punt was when they measured the isotopes of the baboons. And when they measured the copper-14, the isotopes of the baboons, it went back to Eritrea, which is northern Ethiopia. And what I'm saying is that these people, when the Hyksos was trying to send the letters to the Nubians, these motherfuckers was trying to block them. Like, hell no. Because after almost kicked out the Hyksos, he also went south to conquer the Nubians. People don't talk about that half. He was on bullshit. This is a whole other group of people. Not to